Welcome back to the State of the Arc podcast. My name is Mike.
My name's Kason.
And this is going to be our final episode of Final Fantasy.
I gotta wipe all the
9.
tears. I have 9 tears. Just like going down.
Thank
It's
you,
over.
everybody, for joining us. We covered the ending last time, but this week we wanted to open it up, have some questions asked, or if there was anything that particularly our Patreon supporters wanted us to touch on that they thought maybe we missed. We were going to go ahead and tackle those in this final episode. So we are actually joined by 2 special guests today. We have Dan from Final Fan TV, the YouTube channel Final Fan TV, and Spoons from Gaming with Spoons. All right, so those are our guests. Thanks, guys, for joining us. We appreciate you being here. Why don't we start with Spoons here? Talk a little bit about your YouTube channel. What do you do?
So, story analysis, retrospective, kind of long form, kind of a lot like what you guys do, but just one man show instead of 2.
Gotcha.
Nice.
And you've done a lot of Final Fantasy 9 content in particular, right?
One video.
Just one video.
And then I upload I treat it like a podcast, so it's kind of like I upload like the clips of like the deeper meaning portion.
Oh, got
it.
I saw that video you did on Final Fantasy 9 years ago, and I was really impressed by it. So everybody should go watch that.
Yeah, it's great. And Dan, how about your podcast over there at Final Fan TV?
Yeah, I'm the warrior of hype on Final Fan TV. We basically just do some like hype for Final Fantasy Part 3. Right now we have Final Fantasy 7 Part 3. We have basically it's called a hype cast. So every week we're just picking a topic, 1 hour full throttle, bringing the hype and excitement for that. We just started our Final Fantasy reviewed and ranked as well, so that's pretty cool. Every month we're going to be playing a game and doing a review and rank, focusing more on the personal experience and review.
Nice,
very cool.
So one thing that we wanted to do before we jumped into these questions was talk to the 2 of you about your personal experiences with Final Fantasy 9. When did you play it first? What did you think about it on first play? How many times have you played it since then? What are your feelings on it now? That sort of thing. Why don't we start with you, Dan?
Oh, man, thank you. So Final Fantasy 9, when I first played it, it's much like, I believe it was you, Mike, who said that, like, oh, yeah, back then it was, it's cartoony, or like it was, you just got finished playing Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy 8. And at that time, I like to call it the overshadowed masterpiece, really. It's at that time, you just finished playing these 2 amazing games that are more, sci-fi heavy. And then you get this game, it's a little more cartoony at appearance. But they had already, at the same event, announced Final Fantasy X.
Right.
So we saw a third-person camera of, the main character running in an open world. And we were like, whoa, next gen Final Fantasy. So it kind of like, and then Final Fantasy 9's coming out when the PS2's already out.
Yeah.
Whoa. So it was at a weird time when I first played it. And I will admit that when I first played it, I don't know, it just didn't really click. But man, I played it last year. Last year was my most recent playthrough of this, and it hit so hard for me this time around. And I don't want to like get like too personal with it, but I mean, that's how important this game is. It's that, like at first I would say that Final Fantasy 9 is the theme of it is like the fear of death. And like maybe the prison we keep ourselves in because of that. And like every day I feel like I live in that fear, like a constant state of like existential dread. Yeah. I lost my brother when he was 23. I was 16. So I learned how like fragile and fleeting life can be.
Yeah.
So that's like my everyday state of mind, thinking that tomorrow I'm going to find out that I'm dying or somebody I love is dying. And what do I do with this limited time? And I know that Sakaguchi's mother actually passed away when he was young, like 27, I think.
Yep.
I think that was what I found out. And it had a major impact on his life and his storytelling from that moment on. And he told many stories, but even a decade later with Final Fantasy 9, those thoughts that he was having about life were still on his mind, and those thoughts developed further as time passed and stuff like that. So I discovered that I'm the same age as Sakaguchi when he was creating Final Fantasy IX.
Nice.
So it's all starting to kind of make sense that now it's hitting me so much harder than it did when I played it the first time when I was 10, I think, back then. So it's hitting so much harder because I feel like at this point in life, this age, this like mid 30s, is, you know, everybody's kind of experienced some sort of loss or something tragic. Yeah, I mean, like, so I don't want to go too far on with this. I'm sorry, but like,
You're good.
Yeah, I mentioned how it was the fear of death, and I made a note because I was like, the fear of death might be the theme of Final Fantasy IX, but I also maybe it's not. I kind of went back on it after thinking about it a little bit more, and I think that probably the true theme of Final Fantasy IX is the melodies of life.
Sure.
Right.
So it's like, what kind of song are we composing as we're living? What kind of song will others sing when we pass? And I think that is the message. And man, it hit so hard for me, and I've been so excited to talk about that. So I'm just grateful you guys having me on the show for that. I highly encourage anybody who was kind of put off by it back then, like if you're like the same age group and you're put off back, play it again, and I promise it'll hit on a whole nother level.
Yeah. We got a question along those lines about revisiting it. So, you know, later in life or when you're older. So we'll touch on that a bit more. Thank you for sharing that. Spoons, how about you? What is your experience with FF9?
So Final Fantasy IX was my introduction to the RPG genre. Like,
really?
I played Super Mario RPG back in the day, but I was too young to understand what was going on. So it was Final Fantasy, and it was also kind of like my introduction to just this moment of, wow, video games can tell these amazing stories, because I'd never experienced a thing like that. And, you know, it holds a special place in my heart because, like, I attribute it to a lot of just getting into reading in general. But the recent playthrough I did for my video made me really reflect on it, because like most people just dismiss Final Fantasy IX as this cute, childish, whimsical kind of adventure. And when I started diving into the themes, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a lot deeper than I initially had thought. And, you know, we can like kind of elaborate on what he said. You know, it's talking a lot about death, but it's also a lot about the celebration of life, and kind of bringing the two coins, or the two sides of that coin, together. And, you know, how it harmonizes. And that's just a prevailing theme Sakaguchi's done with everything. And like, I've noticed going back to the other Final Fantasies, like he'd been building up to this idea for forever.
Yeah. I can't agree more with what you guys both said. I think you both nailed it pretty much right on the head with what the game's really getting at. And we talked about that a little bit last week in the last episode that we did, and I'm sure we'll jump into it a lot more today. So why don't we get into these questions? Now, I'm going to let you guys know, if you don't hear your name called and your question come up in this episode today, it's likely because we covered what you asked in the last episode that we did, but it wasn't uploaded yet. So it just, we recorded, we're like a week ahead, so to speak, where we record something and then you guys see it a week later. So we had already talked about some of these things in that other episode, but you guys just hadn't had a chance to see it yet. So you will have seen that by the time this goes live. We will have talked about those things. So we're going to skip over here to, looks like Feet Sniffer Weasley, I believe.
Very nice.
Gentlemen. They make you read those names.
I know, man.
They make you read them.
That's great. Okay, so did either of you get anything like this? Well, okay, so he talks about the emotional experience he had with the game. This is the first game ever that made me cry, and it was because of Tears of Joy, the song, you know, Melodies of Life hitting at the end. Did either of you get anything like this as well, or for any game ever? And so what was the game? So have you had an emotional experience like that with Final Fantasy IX? And if not with that, with another one, what was that game? So I don't think I've ever been brought to tears by Final Fantasy IX necessarily. Though I could easily see that happening for a lot of people. I think the ending's really beautiful. But I think the last game to which I got really emotional while playing it was The Outer Wilds. That one hit me really, really hard just because of a personal experience I had been through fairly recently that sort of coincided with that. It brought something together for me. I won't spoil it because if you haven't played The Outer Wilds, you should, and we did a podcast series on that, and it's amazing. But that would be the most recent game, I think, that got me there. What about you?
Yeah. Me neither necessarily for this one. I don't know that it's quite happened, although I do feel it at the end. It's a powerful ending. It's a very powerful ending. It's very beautiful. But no, not necessarily. As for I don't know that I can answer the other part of that question. What about you guys?
Yeah, it's difficult to answer without spoiling like an ending or something.
Yeah.
As far as the other games go.
Other games, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. For as far as other games, but for Final Fantasy IX, like Kason said, I felt it. I definitely felt it, and then you get like that lump in your throat, or like your eye, like whoa, like okay, it was just kind of hitting, especially when they're like showing each character's kind of, hey, this is where they end. This is where each character's ending, and then reading what like Vivi is saying. Vivi, right? That's I assume it's Vivi.
At the end of the game, there is that kind of that little addendum, and that is Vivi.
Yeah.
So there used to be a lot of controversy about that, but in the Japanese, it's clear that it's Vivi.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Okay. I mean, for me, it was always clear, but then I've always heard about that controversy. But yeah, what Vivi is saying at the end and like what he learned, and this is probably his note after death, I would say, or like right before death, and it's just kind of like that hits for me. That one did hit for me.
Yeah. How about you, Spoons?
I mean, I can't really say like in Final Fantasy IX brought me to tears. I'm usually not one who like cries during a game.
Yeah.
But I think one modern game though that had like a really big impact on me this year was Expedition 33.
Oh, that one was great.
Like I walked away from that game just being like, what did I just witness?
Me too, man. Me too.
What a roller coaster that one was.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
There's a very high likelihood that we'll be covering that one next. The vote is still technically open for a little bit longer, but it's winning currently in the poll, and I was the same way for me.
It was really close when I checked last.
Yeah.
It's like, I hope Expedition 33 wins. I voted.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And yeah, I had a similar experience with that game. I was expecting that it would be good. It was hitting on kind of all the things that I was kind of looking for in a modern RPG. And then it just surpassed basically all my expectations and was just far, far better than I could have hoped for it to be. So
me too.
I was really surprised by it. Okay.
You were actually the reason I picked it up, Mike.
Oh, really?
Oh, how about that?
Yeah, because
Nice.
Long story short, I share a lot of the same sentiments as you about modern Final Fantasy. So I'm just kind of checked out on things.
Sure.
So like when you say, oh my gosh, this story's good, I'm like, okay, I'm probably
there you go.
Well, I'm glad it didn't disappoint. It always makes me nervous when people get something based on my recommendation and they're like, "Oh, this sucks. I can't believe it." That happened to me. That happened to me with a game called The Alliance Alive, which I really liked. It was made by it was directed by the creator of Suikoden. And it had the composer. Oh, geez, what's his name? The Final Fantasy 13 composer. I really like him a lot. Hamozu.
Yeah, Hamozu.
Did the music for it. And I thought it was a great game. And then I had a few comments that were like, I can't believe you recommended this garbage to me. I was like, oh, sorry, man. My bad. I thought it was good. Okay. This next one, I don't have an answer to it. If you guys do, great. I did not have the time to look into all or most of the references that FF9 makes to the previous Final Fantasy games. So this is from Christoph, and he's saying, a quick tour on all or most of the references to other entries of the series would be nice. You managed to cover some through each episode, so maybe you could look out for the ones you didn't mention. I didn't have time to look all that up.
I got you covered.
Okay.
Here he goes.
We brought up the ones we noticed. Well, some of the ones we noticed, and this is a question for you guys.
I'll just I'll just go through a quick list of all the ones that I pulled up. So there's obviously the reference to the four fiends.
Yes.
That they go through for the Guardian to Terra. Then there's the Mount Golg.
Yep.
The music.
The homage of that dungeon, and then the music.
I love that music.
Necron is kind of like a soft homage to X-Death.
Yeah.
Oh,
like
yes, that's
quotes
right.
of turning things to the void.
Sure.
Garland, that one's obvious. There's Daga's Artifact and Uni's Mirror from Final Fantasy III.
Yep.
You guys talked about this already, but Rama's story is a retold. It retells Joseph's story from Final Fantasy II.
That's right. Yeah.
There was a line in I Want to Be Your Canary that says, "No cloud nor squall shall hinder us." Yep. The dwarves are a clear callback to Final Fantasy IV and Final Fantasy I.
Yeah, one.
The Ifa tree is somewhat of a callback to the Tower of Babel from Final Fantasy IV, and like the two worlds kind of emerging and like connecting the two. You have the underworld and the overworld kind of thing.
Okay, yeah.
Huh. The trances look a lot like Terra's morph ability from Final Fantasy VI. Pandemonium is a clear reference to Final Fantasy II's final dungeon.
Yep, that's right.
The Zodiacs were a homage to Final Fantasy Tactics. And just a side note on that, I kind of feel like this was supposed to play a much bigger role, but may have been cut. Beatrix's arc in some ways also follows Cecil's, her realization from Final Fantasy IV, her realization of the queen being corrupt.
Is she
and this also reflected through the paladin?
Is she technically a paladin class in the game?
I'd say so.
Yeah, I think so, right? Does she have healing? I think she has healing abilities.
Yeah, she has white magic.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Yeah, totally.
And then Steiner's trance ability, this is the last one I have, but Steiner's trance ability resembles the Dark Knight from Final Fantasy IV as well.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Spoons came in clutch.
Spoons.
Saved us.
That's awesome, man. I love that. I wanted to
great.
put together the Beatrix one. That was a good one.
That's
that was
great.
a good one.
Yeah.
I have like a quote. It not like it wasn't a reference or anything like that, but I do have a quote from the original localization translator.
Okay.
Please do.
Yeah, hit it up.
It's Brody Phillips said in an interview with Games Radar written by Ashley Bardham, August 27th of this year, so very recently. Quote, looking back, I wish we had been sharper about the nostalgia aspect, picking up one or more of those deep cut references to earlier Final Fantasy games. We caught some, we updated some, but others we just missed. And I'm sure a modern team, especially one steeped in the series history, could make those shine brighter. I'd honestly love to see what a new team could do. Localizations come a long way since the last 25 years, and translators have tools that make the process so much smoother than back then. North America got Final Fantasy IX in fall of 2000, while Japan got it in summer. Everything was manual, and we were using WZ editor with regex and all this other blah. But basically, he said work got lost, mistakes happened, it was a little messy. But basically saying that there were even more references to classic Final Fantasy games that were just not in the English version.
Well, that's cool. But also, when a translator of a game who is in the industry says, I'd love to see what a new team could do with this, it makes you wonder if there will be a new Final Fantasy remake or something on the horizon that maybe he knows something about that we don't know.
We'll talk about that a little bit more here at the end.
Please.
Of
the I'll add one more Easter egg just so I don't get butchered in the comment sections, because I guarantee someone will bring it up. Yeah. But Garnet's real name is also reflected as an homage to Final Fantasy I.
We did bring that up.
We brought that up in the last episode that we did. But it's not aired yet.
I think you touched on it a little bit when you were talking about going down and you saw like that green glow from the bottom being the life
the
stream.
Aoife tree.
Yeah. Well, the crystal itself kind of acts as the life stream does, where
That's
like
true.
life comes from it, memory, emotion, all that other stuff. So
that's a good point.
Totally.
There's definitely a Gaia hypothesis sort of lore element to this that is very FF7. It's all over that game too. So, okay. Let's see. We got Zach Hare here. I love the show, guys. I haven't had time to catch up on all the FF9 episodes yet, so apologies if you've already covered this. But thoughts on Garland being the ultimate antagonist of the story? So
I'm going to stop you there.
Just real quick. So Zach's feelings on that were that he felt Garland himself was a bit underdeveloped, at least not as much as Kuja. didn't have a fleshing out of motivations, kind of where Zach is coming from. So just wanted to get our opinion on that. Do you have thoughts on that case?
Well, I do agree that Garland is not fleshed out very well, and that Garland kind of undergoes this very strange and very sudden change into, now I'm going to give you all sagely advice, from I'm literally going to destroy everything you know and love, and you're done, and I'm taking you, and I don't care about any of this stuff, right? He does go through like a flip on that. However, I would disagree that Garland is the ultimate antagonist of the story.
Yeah.
I don't think he is. I think the embodiment of fear.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think he's like maybe the ultimate example of the fear of death. Maybe like he's like, because he's willing to assimilate other.
Except for when he dies, and he's not, except for that part. Like when he's like, I'm dead, but hey guys, it's not so bad. Anyways, go to the crystal, take a left, and then keep going. I'm dead, by the way. Yeah, keep going. And then, okay, there's Kuja. Take care of him, by the way.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess my answer to this, it'll be relatively short, but there's this sort of expectation, or maybe I don't know what you'd call it, something that the audience tends to want a lot from these kinds of stories, which is fully fleshed out characters. And I think one thing that having that mindset for like literally every character in terms of like the principal main characters, whether they be antagonists or protagonists, is that they need to have this complete arc, and they need to change from when we meet them to when we see them at the end. And
yeah, they don't have to.
I don't feel like that need always apply. I think that
I agree.
Certain functions that a character can serve structurally within a story where they're there to fulfill this purpose, and they're doing that regardless of whether they have this sort of like, flashed out arc, so to speak.
Yeah.
Garland would be an example of that to me.
Well, I agree with that, with the slight caveat that when he does undergo the change, like if you have a villain that doesn't change much, and like Sauron, and you just kill him and there's no development, I get that. But if Sauron all of a sudden started giving us sagely advice on how to defeat Morgoth right after we destroyed the ring, and then he's like, oh guys, hey, I actually like you, Frodo, I'm going to talk to you. Then it's like that warrants a little explanation, right? Like at least a little.
I would, not to push back or anything like that. I feel like while you're not wrong on like your characterization of Garland's disembodied voice in Memoria, it's maybe a bit overstated. I don't like I don't know. He's too vague to really characterize what his motivation in pushing you is.
That's fair.
But I could see it being read as he's like repented now, and he's like trying to help you stop Necron or something. So I'm not saying you're wrong. I just Garland to me is not the primary antagonist the way Zach is saying here. That is Kuja. And so Garland is part of the motivating factor and the fleshing out of Kuja and Zidane. He is not in himself. I don't think it's necessary or important that he have the same level of fleshing out as the two of them do.
When you first meet Garland, you think, oh, he's the real villain, but Kuja kind of does away with that pretty quickly, and replaces Garland as the thing we have to take care of / fight against.
Right.
It was cool that he instilled fear in Kuja, though. That was kind of cool.
That's a good point.
The villain that you've been like, oh, this guy is so powerful, and then all of a sudden that guy is afraid of that guy. It's like, whoa. Yeah. But yeah, like you said, he dispatches of him pretty quickly.
Just kicks him.
Garland's motivation was strictly like his whole change in character arc was strictly to get revenge against Kuja at that point, because he destroyed everything of Terra. There was nothing left of it.
That's a good point.
The whole cycle.
That's good.
And then that's where I'm saying.
So then we became a new instrument, a new tool.
That's where I'm saying I think there can be a different reading on how Garland's talking to the party in Memoria, where it's not just like a purely, what's the word I'm looking for? Like he's this sagely, like he's turned it around after death and is trying to, as much as like, I need you to go get that guy who ruined my plans.
Yeah, I hate that
thing,
guy.
right?
Go defeat him / take care of him.
I think it could totally be read that way.
Yes,
too.
and I actually really like that because then he's just an opportunist, right?
Yes.
We weren't serving his purposes before, and now all of a sudden it's like, oh, these guys will serve my purposes now because I want to get that guy. So now I'm your friend, right?
Yeah.
You know, political
Friend
alliance.
of, enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Exactly. I like that actually. That's a very good. I like that you both kind of.
I almost saw that as his way of trying to regain his free will.
Ooh, dang it. You guys are making Garland seem a lot more interesting now than I have been, than I took him. I like that. This just got deep. He deserves. So in the past 4 minutes, I just went from saying that this guy didn't deserve to maybe even be in the game, and now I think he needs his own game. There needs to be a FF9 episode Garland. Oh, that's crazy.
Because that is something that I believe is touched on in the conversation between Zidane and Garland. Is his role in all of this, and he being like sort of locked into this idea of fate. He's given a purpose, and his job is to just do that thing. He doesn't like Spoons was saying necessarily embody the idea of free will. His own purpose is what he wants.
Yet all of a sudden,
that might be kind of his way of trying to do that. I like that reading. I think
Garland just went from my least favorite character in the game to like my third or fourth favorite character in the entire game.
I'll just kind of reiterate on that point. That's kind of a common theme all of the characters have, is they're all kind of challenging with this idea of what their free will is and if it even exists.
Yeah,
that's what I like so much about what you're saying, is that it plays into the theme perfectly.
Yeah.
In a way that I just kind of missed, I guess.
Yeah. So that's great. I love all those answers. Anything else you guys wanted to add, or is that it? Good. Okay.
You said episode Garland, and also you can go play Stranger of Paradise.
Oh, that's a different Garland. Different Garland, but
there may be a day where
FF9 edition.
There may be a day where we do a stream on that game or something. Okay, next one here is from Roku. Is Final Fantasy IX, okay, there may be a little bit of background for this. This is a bit of a meme on our channel and in our Discord specifically, so it might sound funny, but is Final Fantasy IX the most Final Fantasy that has ever Final Fantasied?
Yes. The answer is yes.
100%.
All jokes aside, from the high concept themes, the gorgeous Uematsu score, and mostly tight pacing, does FF9 represent the purest idea of what a Final Fantasy game is, or maybe now what it was? I want to turn this to you guys first, and then maybe we'll come in after you. So whoever wants to take that away.
Okay. Am I allowed to spoil Final Fantasy 1?
If you haven't played Final Fantasy 1 at this point, the game's what 40 or 38 years old.
It's 38, and it's not
like there's a ton to spoil in it, but we're going to, so skip ahead, I guess.
I loved it, by the way, and I'm glad that I didn't know what I was getting into when I played it. So yeah, skip ahead like 5 minutes or something.
Go for it.
So Final Fantasy, the original, the whole shtick at the end, right, it was like a continual time loop.
Yes. Right. Yeah.
Final Fantasy IX has something similar with the cycle of souls. Necron kind of represents that same thing, like the breaking of samsara.
Yes. Yeah.
And so like it, in its truest form, it goes back to that traditional thing of, like this continual loop looking to break the cycle of, samsara effectively.
Yeah.
That's very good. I like that, actually.
I think there's so many,
it's a big callback.
So many things like that are callbacks to previous games that, in many ways, like we've been saying, this is sort of a culmination of all of Final Fantasy's best ideas kind of into one package.
Yeah, I think so.
Or at least all the things that worked from the previous games and then kind of put together. So in that sense, I would say yes. But I think, Dan, you had something you were going to add to that.
No, basically, I would say that it's probably the most Sakaguchi Final Fantasy ever Final Fantasied,
Yes.
So like I said at the top when I was kind of going through like what Sakaguchi's story was and like how his idea of this thought that he had in his mind ever since his mother passed away, I was like, and it's kind of developed further and further. I think this was probably the culmination of all of those ideas in its like most complete form, maybe.
Yeah.
So I would say probably the most Sakaguchi Final Fantasy.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to put it. And, up to this point, They had only really started breaking off into separate teams that developed Final Fantasy very recently. So most of the games before this, excluding 8, were kind of his, he was overseeing them for the most part, even though he was an executive producer or a high-level producer, not necessarily a director. There are quotes where they talk about how involved he was as a producer outside of Final Fantasy VIII. So I think that's probably true.
I get the feeling that it's the story he wanted to tell in Final Fantasy VII, and then it was just it wasn't fully formed, and then he was just like,
I actually agree with that.
Yeah,
I agree with that a lot. We talked about at the beginning of the series how there was a quote from, I think, Shinji Hashimoto, where he said that Sakaguchi wanted to get away entirely from what Final Fantasy VII and VIII were. And there was a little bit of confusion on that. We sort of clarified later in the series. He still was involved, particularly with this part that you're talking about, Dan.
Yeah.
In those elements being inserted into Final Fantasy VII, right? He kind of came up with the world concept, the life stream, the materia system, all of that part of it, which all relates back to this, terrible loss he suffered with the death of his mother. And that part of the story that he wanted to tell. And so if there is maybe another sort of element to Sakaguchi's wanting to get away from FF7 and 8, it could be him wanting to, maybe he wanted Final Fantasy VII to be even more focused on those elements, but it was written by a team of a bunch of different people who were all had different inspirations and stuff. And maybe this was his way of sort of taking it back and being no, this is my story that I'm telling this time. So in that sense, I think you're probably pretty accurate with what you're saying there. I agree with that. Okay, anything else, or we'll move on to the next one?
Good.
Okay. All right, this is from Gavin Dodson. He's here with us, I think.
We got
live.
Dodson. we got Dodson here.
There's been so many rumors over the past few years about a remake. Okay, sorry. We're going to come back to remake questions at the end.
Come on now. You're about to activate the
I'll come back to you, Gavin.
We said the word.
We're going to talk about remake. There was probably 4 or 5 remake questions in this.
I know. I
so
saw that.
we'll come back to remake as the last part of this. All right, this one's from Prem. If Final Fantasy IX is considered the ideal Final Fantasy, which generally...
Yes.
Why isn't 9 the first game to be recommended by those getting into the series?
Ooh, that's a good question.
This is very, very easy for me. In order to appreciate what FF9 is, you kind of have to see where it came from. In order to know what it's pointing back to, in order to understand how it became the collection of best ideas, you have to know what those ideas were.
Sure.
So I think it's perfectly placed just chronologically as where you should play it. I think you should play the games that came before it, before you play it. Because if you play it and then go back, I guess you could say, oh, that's you would see it there in the reverse. they're calling back to FF9 in this weird way.
FF1 is an FF9 callback. It could be, depending on your concept of time.
Also, I think it's just abjectly better than, say, the NES trilogy or something like that, just based on the level of experience the team had, how much more mature they were as developers and writers. And so you're going to be stepping back into something that you'd have to understand as you're working back into their level of experience, their level of talent, all these different things. And that's not to put down the NES trilogy or the SNES trilogy, but there are also huge text limitations on those games where story-wise they couldn't do nearly as much as they could on the PlayStation. And so, at least for me, my first game was Final Fantasy VII, and then I went back and I was, I think, disappointed in that aspect. The story seemed much more limited in the writing and in what they were doing, and that was because of things that I've come to understand now as text limitations on cartridges and just experience level. And so that's why I think it's better to start earlier and work up to it. But I don't know if you guys have another answer to that.
I'll just say I think it's a tonal shift in the direction that Kitase and his team took Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
Because you see this as a growing sentiment with modern Final Fantasy fans. The Sakaguchi-led ones have that childish, chibi anime art style versus the other ones are going more realistic.
Yeah.
And this is why so many people recommend Final Fantasy X as the first one.
Yeah.
Because it still holds up the best graphically, and it's kind of like a good beginner's RPG as well.
Yeah.
Because it breaks down the core fundamentals of how an RPG works. But I think that's a lot of it. And in terms just like what you said, being someone who played Final Fantasy IX as their first, I think granted I was 12 when I played it, so my knowledge was limited back then. But I definitely think playing that, you'll appreciate those things more if you move from 7 to Final Fantasy IX.
Yeah. How about you, Dan? You got an answer to that?
I mean, that's well said. Both of you guys, I think that's well said. You can appreciate the game more if you're playing the earlier ones. and then, like, of course, Gaming with Spoon saying with Final Fantasy X, I think that's always been my kind of go-to recommendation for anybody getting into it. I just think Final Fantasy X has probably the best combat system. And it, like you said, beginners RPG, turn-based RPG type thing. It is, when I read that question on your Patreon, I was like, wow. That is actually a really good question.
It's a good question.
It's like a really love Final Fantasy IX, and it is like, I feel like it is probably the best, Sakaguchi led Final Fantasy, and it's just like, why isn't that the one I go to for the recommendation? It's obviously you got Final Fantasy VII, which has these very iconic characters that like transcended just the series. It's like gaming wide at this point. So it's like, yeah, go to 7 or remake if you're into action. So it is tough. That is a very interesting question.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong if you start with 9.
No, that's true. I mean, it's not like it's a bad place to start. I don't think there's any bad place to start, but yeah.
But in some ways, this is kind of like mixing things up a little bit. It's like there are some games that work better as standalone games, and those games actually sometimes fit the least within the continuum of Final Fantasy games. Sure. Where it's like, oh, this is, and if it's a good standalone game, then it's a good entry level game. But that doesn't mean that it's the most Final Fantasy. It's not the ideal Final Fantasy game, but it is the most approachable for a new player. That's just two different questions. Yeah, right. But when you phrase it in that way, it is, it does make you think, but at the same time, there's two different things you're looking at when you're introducing someone to something.
Sure.
It's like Avengers Endgame, and you're just like Endgame is such an amazing movie, but you don't start with that.
You don't start with that. That'd be crazy.
Understand it. You won't appreciate it.
That's a good point. I like that.
All right. This next one's from Aaron Holt here. If you could time travel and be part of the development team on the original FF9, what is one aspect of the game that you would have changed, added, or removed?
Ooh. Be careful, people. You likely would have made it worse. Whatever your answer is, you likely would have made it worse. But okay, let's go.
You guys got an answer to that to start us off?
I'm going to share a sentiment Mike shared during the episode with the 4 Guardians. I am very much with you. I would have liked to have just like a moment where there was a dialogue exchange and characters and being able to fight those bosses with each of those party members.
Like with the mirrors that you kind of have to. That's right.
For Memoria, because you do fight them in Memoria, but
well, that leads me to
Final Fantasy 1, for instance, you fought them twice. So you would have fought them in each of the 4.
With this one, we only fought one of them.
Right. So this would have given you an opportunity to fight them, in the 4 elemental dungeons and then again in Memoria. This is kind of my point. Yeah.
Yeah, that leads me to believe they were cut because you can actually fight them in Memoria. So they were like planned out enemies with attacks.
Right. So that's true. Yeah, it was probably cut.
How about you, Dan?
I got an answer for the change, keep, remove thing. So I'll be quick with it. Change the trans system so that way it's not like just randomly, or not randomly, but just used when it's very pointless.
Right. I agree with that one.
So change the trans system. I don't know if that has to be like in a desperation state or only in boss battles, whatever. I would say that you remove the randomness of the Tetra Master.
Yeah.
So removing that randomness, I think, would make it maybe more like Queen's Blood, because when I played Queen's Blood, I was like, this is kind of similar, but without the
Queen's Blood is the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth card game, right?
That's correct. Yeah,
because I haven't played that game yet, so just in case people didn't know, Queen's Blood is from Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Yeah.
All right. Yes, you'll love it. Oh my God. Queen's Blood is probably the best minigame in Final Fantasy, so you'll love it. And then I would have added more character development for Amaranth, and maybe a little more Freya after Burmecia.
Yeah,
a little more Freya stuff.
I think those are all really good answers. And so in order to not reiterate on them, well, actually, no. I'm going to take this opportunity to talk about the card game a little bit, because Chocolate Rob wrote this in, explaining in even greater kind of granular detail how Tetra Master works. And so I'm just going to read what he said, and I'll leave this as my answer. Tetra Master is probably what I would change, not remove, but alter. Yeah, just change it.
Because when you're introducing an element of randomness, that makes it not viable as an actual card game.
Right.
Right. You need a computer next to you when you play the card game to calculate the randomness. That's not how card games work.
Yeah.
That's not card games don't do that. So, there you go.
That's a good point. Okay. So what Rob says here is, do you actually understand just how convoluted the mechanics of Tetra Master really are?
No.
Bad enough that they're never fully explained in the game, just incomplete piecemeal parts. But the unintuitive use of hexadecimals to assign values and the fact that no cards have a lower range to their value. A stated value of 1 is actually between 0 and 15, is actually between 16 and 31, and so on.
2 is, yeah.
Oh, 2. 2 is actually between 16 and 31, so on. A random roll from a range that increases by 16 each time. If it were just this, that would be fine, assuming that there was it was actually explained somewhere, right? Which it isn't. There's also just a tiny bit of RNG that would only matter with opposing cards of the same outward value. The reason it's a real bitch is that this number is not the number used to battle. Another number is chosen randomly between this between this and 0. But that is not the actual number used either. This number is instead subtracted from the original to get a third number, and this number is the one that is compared against the opponent's cards, their number.
No, I have to tell you something. When the programmer programmed this, I guarantee you that they were like, this is brilliant. I guarantee you they thought that they had just come up with the coolest way to measure output for a card game in the world, and that the other programmers around them probably agreed with them. And we're like, oh, you did the hexadecimal to create a third number? No one's thought of doing that before. I guarantee you.
So Tetra Master was constructed by a sadist for sure.
He goes on to say here, when a card battle begins, you see the first number on both cards, both selected from the shown numbers range. Then invisibly, so that's like when you're playing the card and you see the random numbers that pop up, 16 and 31 or something like that, right? And then they battle. Okay, so you see that first is what he's saying. Then invisibly, another number is randomly chosen between this one and 0.
To add to it, right?
That takes away from, I think.
Right.
Okay. Visibly, you see both cards counting down in value, but they are not battling just yet. What you're seeing is the second number on both cards being subtracted from the first. After the countdown, you're finally shown a third number on both cards, the second number subtracted from the first, and these numbers are then battled against each other with the highest value winning. If your first number was 122 and the randomly chosen second number was 112, then the difference is only 10, so the value is 10. However, if the second number were only 15, then the subtracted from the first would leave the card with a value of 107. This is way too many steps of pointless RNG bogging the game down. I 100% agree with you. This card game does not need to be complicated in this way. And this is exactly what I would change.
What's so hard
Thank you,
to understand
Chocolate Rob. What?
I don't understand. What's so hard? What's so hard about it?
See, and I guarantee you a lot of programmers would say the same thing. They're like, what's so hard about that? I get you don't like it, but this makes perfect sense.
Man.
Okay. Did you pick one? I don't think you picked one that's something you would change or alter.
The music.
The music? Oh.
Just kidding. I'm not changing the music. What would I change? What would I change?
I was going to say that was a shot to the heart right there.
No. I think this is the best Final Fantasy in as a whole, generally speaking. I'm afraid to touch anything. After hearing your explanation for that Tetra Master thing, I'm thinking, okay, fine, change it, fine. I didn't mind it that much. I really didn't. But I tend to kind of collect as many cards as I can, so I have really good stuff, so I just don't lose that often. But, by all means, change it and make it better. And sounds
make
great.
it less complicated. Just show the numbers on the cards. Don't have some invisible third RNG number rolling behind the screen. That's just not the kind of thing I think that players with, values and cards, and I'm playing this card as a strategy in this position, want some invisible thing they can't see, like affecting your success.
Yeah.
No.
So that's my answer to it.
There's probably stuff that I would change in certain places, but it's just minor stuff. It's just personal preference stuff. So really the game is just too good for me to feel like I ought to touch it.
Here's another thing I'll throw out there, since the card game had already been brought up by someone else. I would have increased the battle speed. I think the battle speed's way too slow.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
The game,
especially the summons.
The game has just kind of long loading times, generally speaking.
Yeah.
It's a lot longer than, say, FF7, where that was like a huge priority for the team, was to make the load screens really short. And so that's why they didn't use... Or that's why Uematsu did the music the way he did. We've talked about this elsewhere. But in this game, they weren't as worried about that. And so the battle speed being slow on top of the load times being slow, like when you're loading battles up in random encounters, can make the game kind of a slog. So I would definitely increase the battle speed and make haste available way more quickly than it is. Unless you're emulating the game and you're like speeding the game up. Or if you're playing, I think they have that feature in the PC release now on Steam.
Oh yeah, where you can speed it up.
You can speed it up.
I think basically like all of the new, even like the Pixel remasters have something like that, right?
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
They have like a speed up feature.
I feel like any remake of a game more than 15 years old has like a fast forward feature.
Yeah, fast forward.
Games used to be slow, man.
So, go ahead.
I think they need to also, like, they could have elaborated on how the summoning system became more powerful.
Oh yeah,
I learned through you that collecting the gems were how they got stronger, and I played the game like 8 times and never knew that.
Yeah, that's a good point. The more jewels you have in your inventory, the stronger the summon, the accompanying summon is. So.
And honestly, just as you play the game in general, the accumulation just kind of happens naturally.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's interesting.
Okay, this next question is from Justice Reigns. If you had to rank them all, what would your top 3 characters in the game?
Okay, number 1 is Garland.
It's from the bottom to the top, man.
I've come full circle, people. No. It's not Garland.
Like a Garland.
He's like 4. He barely misses my top 3.
Okay, what are your top 3?
Oh, it's so hard to say, but I really personally like Garnet a lot. I would probably put Garnet. I would probably put Garnet as... I think she's up there. It's between Garnet and Vivi for me.
Yeah.
Those 2 characters. I really like what they did with Garnet. I mean, what they did with Zidane and Vivi and Kuja and Garland and all the empty vessel people is very interesting and fascinating. I really like it a lot. But there's something about the way that Garnet just gracefully, the way she plays her character and gracefully fulfills her role and takes it very seriously when she has to step out of her ordained role as queen, right? Or as princess or whatever it is. She does not do this lightly. She only does this when she absolutely has to. And even after she does it, she wonders, did I do the right thing? Like she takes her calling, the fate very seriously and something that she actively wants to do. But the forces of the world are such that there are times where she does have to step out of that in order to really make things better. And she is willing to do that each time. I really like her character a lot. And then it would probably go Vivi and Queena. We'll throw Queena in there. Yeah. And then honorable mention is Garland. Queena. We'll throw Garland at 4.
Same.
All right.
I take that back. I got a comment that did, but I've grown to appreciate Queen. I'll put it that way.
Oh, okay. That's going to be interesting because Queena definitely makes it into my top 3 as well. Always has. I've always loved that character a lot.
Me too.
And I'm not a person who generally likes that kind of mascot foil character in this genre. I find them pretty annoying a lot of the times. I think it's really difficult to make a character like that work. But there's something about how Queena embodies that Buddhist principle, which we got into about like staying on the path, kind of like the path to enlightenment, that I can't say I always understood that about the character, but that I've always somehow intuitively appreciated about Kina. Kina keeps it simple in life.
Yes.
And is present. And that is one of the most important things you can embody. And I love how a lot of the other characters miss that. They miss the forest for the trees, so to speak, when it comes to Kina, especially Zidane. And so I think there's something really powerful to be learned from that. So some of my favorite characters in the game this time around are characters that kind of embody that. So Kina's one. I really like Baku. I really like Baku a lot.
Baku's hilarious. More Baku. You know, that's what I would change about this game. I maybe a little more Baku.
Baku, every time he comes on screen, makes me laugh.
It's wonderful.
There's not one miss in the whole game. Every time he's there, it's a good scene. The scene is better because he's in it.
Yeah.
And just the way he laughs at everything and beats people up and stuff. It's just, he's funny.
He's rough.
I like him. I like him a lot.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and put him as like, because he's not a main character, I'll put him at like my honorable mention or fourth spot here. And just keep it to main characters instead. So this time, Steiner really stood out to me.
Really? You know what? Me too. I liked it more than I have before.
And in particular with my number one spot, which is Vivi, the dynamic between the two of them is just incredible. And it's my favorite of like the character pairings, I guess, in terms of like how they work off of each other. I really like that sort of wholesome, innocent nature between the Steiner Vivi kind of like bond.
That was fun.
That is just very endearing.
The two of them, they're just perfect friends. I really like that.
And the way that he stands up and like helps Vivi through his tough spot, and he's just awesome. I like Steiner.
And that masculine jaw is
and he's also hilarious. I mean, he's
funny.
Just really, really funny. So okay, we'll turn it over to you guys now.
Oh, that's man. I also really liked Steiner this time around when listening to your podcast. You guys made me like Quinn, like Gaming with Spoon was saying. You guys made me like. I was like, I didn't like Kate Sith. I don't like Quinn.
Right.
But no, this time around I was like, oh wow. That when you guys said that in your podcast where you were like living in the moment, Quinn is the only one that's like present in like the present. I'm like, oh man, that's really good. No, my favorite, my top three. This was a tough one for me because I have Garnet as my number one. Like for all the reasons you said.
Yeah, she's great.
And then after that, Vivi, and then I was like, man, it could be interchangeable, Zidane or Steiner, but yeah, I went with Zidane.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
How about you, Spoons?
Vivi hands down is number one. Best character throughout the game. Just his whole arc is so good.
Yeah. And the way he reacts to it.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's so good.
And like most little kid characters are so obnoxious in video games.
True.
I just
like Rat Kid.
Like,
they're all Rat Kid.
Yeah. Oh, that's one of my favorite characters too. Puck, he's great.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You said that in your
Steiner would be my second just because of the choice he had. Like no matter what path he chose, he'd have to fight the war.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'm going to show Freya some love because I feel like she doesn't get enough. Like her character arc to where she was to being let go by her kingdom, abandoning it, looking for her boyfriend, realizing her boyfriend forgot her.
Yeah.
And then like the quote, to be forgotten is worse than death. And still be able to find purpose and meaning with Beatrix. I can't forgive you, but I'm going to set aside my differences and fight for the greater good was an incredible end to her character arc.
Yeah.
I don't think we touched on that enough about how big of a person she was for doing that.
Yeah. She is the most complained about character, I feel like, where players wanted more screen time for her.
Oh, I see.
And I understand why, but I also have always felt like that's a bit of an overstated criticism. She does, we do see like a resolution to a story. It's not like she just is no longer ever touched on again. It's just maybe not given as much screen time as people would like.
Yeah.
But I think that she's a wonderful character that does see a complete arc by the end of it. So
yeah, at the end, one thing I do kind of want to point out as I'm thinking about it, like Quinn being in the present moment and like not thinking about past, not thinking about future. When we see Freya, the very last thing she says is that even though he doesn't remember me, I just want to be here now in this moment.
Yeah,
that's
right. And I was Yeah, so that was really good. I love Freya.
That almost explains Freya's liking to the way Quina thinks too.
Yeah, yeah. Like Quina basically changes Freya for the better, and that you see that at the end. So I think she's
that's cool.
I think she has a complete arc, and I think she's a well-written character. But I can understand why people wanted to see more of her story kind of fleshed out in the later portions of the game, where it kind of they just don't have room for that or space for that.
Yeah.
All right, this one comes from Daniel Ayers. And that's for you in particular, Kason. Is Adon's double-sided sword still as cool as you remember it being when you were young?
Nothing in the world is as cool as I remember it being when I was 12. When I was 12, the coolness factor for everything around me that I thought was cool was so mind-blowingly cool that nothing will ever approach that again. So no, however, I really do appreciate, I really do like still that you can synthesize weapons, that you can... because it's not just like, oh, I found a new weapon. It's like you can help build your weapon, and you've got this whole half of a weapon that is just sitting there doing nothing, just invisible, empty air. Like, put a blade on that thing, man.
Yeah.
And so you can do that. Boom. Your sword can have like two swords. You're still just holding one handle. It's got two swords now. Now be careful. That can hurt you pretty bad.
Yeah.
But
you don't know how to wield it.
Yeah, but nothing is as cool as when I first saw it when I was 12.
Yeah.
But I like it a lot, and yeah, we'll just put it at that.
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. All right. Rob had a couple other questions. I'm going to return to Rob since we've already highlighted one there, just so we can get to other people. But if there's time, we'll come back. So this one's from Sean. In the years since your first playthroughs, what stands out to you? What do you remember most? Whether it's a scene, character, location, or any artistic decision. Let's pass this over to Dan first.
So like leading into my recent playthrough, there was a long gap before I played Final Fantasy IX again. And I think every time I thought of the game, you know how there's always that one thing that always just it's there. For me, it was when Garnet cut her hair. And I was like, I don't know why, but I guess I understood that it was, symbolizing change. It was symbolizing her becoming like basically her own person. But watching your show, I loved how I believe, well, I don't know if it was I don't know.
This was Kason. This was Kason for sure.
I did. Symbolize her. It was the Japanese symbolism of like cutting free from her past, and it was almost like she was like removing those shackles, right? Like removing the shackles, or maybe not being a bird in a cage. She's finally able to allow herself to fly. And I'm like, now I have an even more deeper appreciation of that scene. And I guess maybe subconsciously that's why I thought it was so cool, because you guys retroactively made it. You explained it to me.
Yeah, there is a lot of stuff that we don't even realize why we like something sometimes, right? Yeah. But it's hitting on something human there that. And then, it just gets articulated maybe the right way by someone. You go, oh, yeah, like that's why. So maybe it's...
I love how you... Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I love how you pointed out that immediately after that, you get the airship. So you get to fly.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a really great observation by you. I thought that was awesome. Yeah,
It's the freedom. Yeah, her character's so great because then she does... go back. The one caveat there is when she threw that crown on the ground. I'm like, oh, pick that thing back up. You're still the queen, lady. Yeah. But that was her. I like your take on that. That was her meeting Zidane as herself, not as the character,
as Dagger,
but as Dagger, not Garnet. Yeah.
Garnet.
And it's like, that's cool. But you pick that, at least, I don't care about the stone, but pick that crown back up. Your people need you, Yeah. But other than that, the way that she kind of like denies certain things in order to be her true self, but in the end ends up stepping back into that role. But as a new person now, like she, if she just became the queen by default without going through all this, she wouldn't be the same queen. But by doing all of this, going through this for the benefit of not just her people, but everyone else on the planet, now when she becomes the queen, and it's still her being queen, choosing to be the queen, it just it's more meaningful, it's more powerful, and she'll be a better queen for it.
You know what? We didn't say this at the end of our last episode. I just thought of it. Garnet's hair is back to being the length from the beginning of the game.
How long?
That's what I was going to bring in. I was like, that's like 3 years of hair growth. depending on
3
how
years.
fast your hair grows, I mean, it's different between people. I mean, I have grown my hair out back and forth quite a lot.
Yeah.
It takes a long time to grow your
and
hair.
her hair was like
And it's
past her waist.
It's like
low.
it's like 3 years of hair growth.
Yeah.
So I just realized Zidane was probably gone for something like 3 years.
Dang. He better
And
have
then-
a real good reason for why he didn't come back sooner.
Anyway, pass it back over to Spoons for your answer to the question. If you need me to read it again, I can.
I got it pulled up here.
Okay.
There's so many. It's hard to choose because there's so many iconic scenes from Final Fantasy IX. I'll just go with two that really stand out. And oddly enough, they both take place on airships for me.
Nice.
There is the one where Vivi encounters the Black Mage for the third time, the third Black Mage.
Yes, I love
And
that
he
scene.
watches everybody just like him just decimate that entire thing. And like it's amazing, like the camera angle they use to like focus. You could just see like the emotion welling up in Vivi.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an incredibly powerful scene because it highlights this idea. It's like it sets in for Vivi the almost demonistic human nature that exists in everybody. Like just,
Yeah.
to kill people for no reason other than, just because they're in my way.
Right.
And the other scene that always really stands out to me is Beatrix's moment of like realizing Queen Brahne is corrupt. And I want to bring this up because you said you said in one of the episodes, you were talking a little bit about like, she said, well, it could, why couldn't my army could have just gone in and done that? Why did we need the Black Mages?
Right.
And it was like, I think that was, I read that as like Beatrix reflecting that was overkill.
Yeah,
my army
right.
could have just gone in and grabbed it. There was no need for all this needless bloodshed.
So you read
And
it the
that was
correct
like-
way.
Yeah,
you
that
read
is
it the way it was
more-
meant to be.
Yeah, the Japanese says more or less that.
Yeah. And that's the way I took it. I'm just that moment, was like that shift. It was to put that back into where I said she kind of turns into with Cecil. That was like her looking in the mirror of herself at that moment and realizing, what I'm doing right.
Yeah.
And then that scene where her and Steiner ultimately back at the castle have to make the decision: do we follow Brahne or do we protect Princess Garnet? Those two conflicting duties coming into play. It's one or the other.
Yeah, that's great stuff. I don't think I have a great answer to this time. I've played the game, I think, 6 times now in total. And so there's always something different that kind of sticks out to me each time. But what stuck out to me this time is that I would have classified, before this playthrough, Final Fantasy V as being the one game in the mainline series that I would have called a comedy first.
Oh, okay.
And sort of like a drama second.
Yeah.
And I now also classify Final Fantasy IX that way. It's really more funny than it is serious.
FF9 is a comedy. Yeah.
That balance does change, like towards the end of the game, where there's a lot of devastation and total like towns completely destroyed, like nuked. So there's heavy parts to it, and Zidane obviously going through the existential identity kind of crisis and stuff towards the end, and the big Necron fear of death kind of thing. So it does get heavy on the sort of dramatic gravitas side towards the end, but I would still say on the scales, it's a lot more funny more often than it is like really dark or serious or dramatically poignant. But I think that those moments shine even brighter, particularly because of that, because they're like strategically sort of placed. They're sparse.
It's what do you call it? It's contrast. You're creating difference. You're creating. I don't know what the word is for it, but when you build a release before the buildup of more action, if everything is the Dark Knight all the time, it's just like the tension keeps going up. You never have any release. But in order to a healthy, like this is how all graphs that go up and to the right, the healthiest way to go up and to the right is to sometimes go down and to the right.
Yes.
That you always need corrections and pullbacks and whatnot. But yeah, Final Fantasy IX has a ton of those, and I agree. Yeah, it helps to give shape and color and contrast to the scenes.
Yeah, and I mean it's always hitting too. The comedy. There's not one joke that I was like, "Oh, that was lame," or like it was just funny.
Okay, here's the one. No Cloud nor Squall shall hinder us. I actually hated that joke. No, I love the callback. I love the reference. But as a joke, I was just like,
that was a translation team.
Yes, they added it in,
not an original Japanese thing.
Which I do like
true?
the callback. Yeah, it was not in the original Japanese.
Yeah, because I mean, those words
Squall and
don't
Cloud
mean
aren't
the same thing in Japanese, and so that line wouldn't work in Japanese. So they couldn't have said. I mean, I'm pretty sure Squall is just called Squall in Japanese.
I think
they just have the, what do you call it? The katakana like spelling of it.
Cloud is kuraudo.
Kuraudo.
It's not like
Kumori. But that
or,
doesn't mean cloud in Japanese,
no, Kumori,
right?
Yeah, it's a different word.
Like the joke or that line as a reference wouldn't work in Japanese, and so that wasn't how the line read it there. So they kind of added that for some English flavor. But anyway, that would be my, I guess, what I took away from it this time was how funny it is, how much more a comedy it is than a drama for the most part, and how that is something that really works for this game. I'm usually a person who likes the scales be weighted the other direction. And in particular, maybe for this series, for a game like FF7 or something like that, which I think scales the other direction. I think it's perfect here. And I just think it's perfectly executed. So that stood out to me.
It helps 9 is just so well written too.
Yeah. It really is. It really is.
Great.
Well paced, everything.
Yeah. I loved all of it. Which would you not have ruined the pacing if you included the Four Fiends boss fight? Yeah, I'm just saying. You play with one thing, you ruin other things. So,
I've thought about that too.
I'm sure that it would still have worked just fine. Yeah, for me, I actually really like the three scenes that when I first played this game, it was Vivi fighting the black mages in the South Gate on the way to Lindblom.
Yeah, that's
the coolest
such
FMV.
A great scene, yeah.
So incredibly cool. And now the ones that I think of for this game are actually there's three of them. It's Zidane and Garnet at the very beginning when they're escaping on the the streamers, and swinging. But she swings first, and then he follows her. Right? They're not on the same one together.
No.
But then when he rescues her after the Alexander
that's a great scene too.
Then they're on the same one together. And then the final one is when she jumps into his arms at the end of the play when he says, "Come here, my dagger," whatever that line is.
That's kind of like 3.
Yes.
I know that this is more of a 4-act structure, but if you're looking at it as the traditional Western 3-act structure.
The story of Zidane and Garnet is a 3-act.
He's chasing her at the beginning. Yeah. They're cutting closer by that sort of middle act, and then at the end.
And then she's chasing him by the end. And then that's when they finally end up together.
Yeah, that's great.
Those 3 cutscenes just on their own are the ones that I remember when I'm thinking about my last playthrough.
Yeah, that's great. Great answer. Okay. Let's see. Andrew L is asking roughly how high or low would Final Fantasy IX rank in y'all's favorite games? Now, are we talking about favorite Final Fantasy games, or just all-time favorite game? Maybe you can do a both. Maybe you can do one or the other. It's up to you. I'll pass it to Spoons.
I have a natural bias for Final Fantasy IX because it was my favorite. So just like when someone asks, just because it resonates with me, 9's like the one I'll say. Just I hate placing favorite games because it's so consistently changing.
Yeah, me too.
Like
I love doing it, but then you regret it. When you share it publicly, it's like I love doing. I have a Google document of all my rankings of everything.
So I'll say it's in my. I'll say like as representative everything that I enjoy about the Final Fantasy series as a whole, I'd rank it as number 1. I think it like best exemplifies that fantasy experience for me.
Yeah. How about you, Dan?
Oh man, I would say that before I played Final Fantasy IX last year, I would have ranked it probably out of my top 5 Final Fantasy games
in the series. Yeah.
In the series, yeah. And now it's probably in my top 5.
Nice.
Final Fantasy, I would say it definitely is in my top 5.
Yeah. Very nice.
And yeah, I, as far as like out of favorite games in the world, it might not be in there. But
just so that we can get more people, crapping on us. What would that rank be? Like, what would be ahead of it?
Let's see. you see what happens here is that I got an upcoming series coming when I do that.
You can't spoil it.
Final Fantasy.
What would be ahead of Final
spoil it.
Fantasy 9? Ocarina of Time.
Ocarina of Time.
Ocarina of Time.
I like how you navigated that. You sidestepped that very deftly. That was well played by you.
Trying not to give that away.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned.
Well played by you.
Yeah.
So as far as FF games go, Final Fantasy 9 is my second favorite Final Fantasy. I think it's kind of firmly been there ever since I first played it. But I think even so now, I think that my two favorites, which are 9 and 7, to me are pretty well separated from the ones that come after them. And that's not to say anything bad about them. I think it's just to show how excellent I felt the PlayStation era was.
Yeah.
I just think it was really, really special. There was a particular way of designing RPGs at that time that was kind of like how games were designed in this genre then. And like almost none of them are designed like that now, unless they're like, indie games or smaller projects, but like the big, budget JRPGs are not designed that way anymore. And I kind of miss that style. So, in terms of my favorite games of all time, I don't think I've ever ranked it in my top 10. There's just so many other games that make their way in there, and games that people will probably like roll their eyes at me for, like Harvest Moon 64, and things like that.
Yeah,
right.
That's a dope game.
But my interests in games, they go well outside of just JRPGs, and so there's maybe 2 or 3 JRPGs that are in that top 10, but there's a lot of other genres that make their way in there too. So that's not a knock on 10 or on Final Fantasy 9 as much as it is, again, I think just how excellent some of the other choices I would make I think are. So
when we did our top 10 favorite games, I believe I put 9 in there, and I believe I can't remember where it was. So I better not say the wrong number.
It was like 8 or 9
like
or
that.
7 or somewhere in that range. Like
although
lower
I think
half of 10.
10 might have been in there too, though.
I think it was.
And so I had 10, 9, and 7. And I can't remember if 9 was above 10 or not.
That was a fun episode that you guys did. That was a fun video.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I like seeing because then it lets people know more about you as rather than just the games that you're covering. But so I like that.
We turned our subjectivity up for that one, which is how top 10 lists ought to be made.
Yeah.
Are you a human or are you a robot? Like it doesn't matter if it's like your subjective experience that makes it a top 10. It's still a top 10. But Final Fantasy 9 is probably 9 and 10 just will fight forever. I think they will forever be wrestling for that number 2 spot. And then they're all, those 3 are top 10 for me for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Andrew, for the question. This one's from Bart. This is interesting. So just what is Queen Brahne supposed to be?
Now, I didn't bring this up, but there's that portrait of her in the castle that you walk past.
Yes.
It's a good question, dude.
It looked almost Q-like.
Somebody,
the portrait.
There might be a half mixture.
I'm not saying there is. I'm just saying the portrait kind of gives that feel.
Okay. So somebody in our comments, I can't remember for which one, maybe it was early, maybe episode 2 or 3, mentioned that Queen Brahne looks like a blue meanie. Now, do any of you guys listening know what the blue meanies are?
God, it sounds so familiar. Because it's like you triggered something in my past. I don't know.
So the Beatles in the 70s, when they released the Yellow Submarine movie, they made a movie out of their Yellow Submarine album, and there's some antagonists in that movie called the Blue Meanies, and they're these little blue people with shadows under their eyes, that round eyes. They do look. Garnet doesn't, or not Garnet, definitely not Garnet. Queen Brahne does sort of resemble a blue meanie, like a little bit. But once again, even just like with the Q people, which I would love to see her tongue, but. She would be a mixture of a blue meanie with some other a hippo. No, I'm just kidding. A human. And that's what does Kuja call her? A hippo or an elephant?
Oh,
I can't remember what he calls
Elephant
it.
Lady, isn't it?
Elephant Lady.
Yeah, elephant
That's
lady.
what it was. Yeah.
Somebody brought up blue meanies, and I think there might be something to that. Knowing, I don't know, Sakaguchi seems to really have liked rock and roll music from back then. And that he probably was a big.
He
fan
wanted
of the
to be a
Beatles.
musician when he was in high school. So that would have been around that time.
So he probably was familiar with the blue meanies. So that could have been it, but I don't know that there's a confirmation on that.
I mean, as far as I'm aware, she's just a really big
Ugly.
human being.
Big ugly.
She's a human.
She's human.
Like,
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think the confusion comes from because she's painted white.
Yeah.
Is
So
that
like,
makeup?
is she a Q? Is she like, are her and like Amaranth a race that is never mentioned?
Yeah.
So I think that's why people are like, what is she supposed to be? Bron's just a human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to answer this question a little bit further, if you take a look at Queen Brahne and kind of how she was inspired, it is clear it is an homage to Alice in Wonderland and the Queen of Hearts.
Oh, sure.
Oh,
So
that
like
makes
the
sense
white
too.
collar and everything, the Bandersnatches being, like
Yeah.
you
the
in there
advisors.
when she fights, you can go outside Alexandria on disc 4 and refight the Bandersnatches. So I think they were
That's
trying to go
right.
for some Alice in Wonderland reference there.
I like, and then
Yeah.
she's eager to shout off with their heads.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that. I like
Yeah.
that actually.
I think that's actually the best answer. Just a human
Yeah, that's-
being that looks really messed up because, again, thematically, she's kind of going insane. And so,
Yeah.
that's sort of represented in her appearance
Well, there's this
in
idea.
a cartoony sense.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah.
cartoony, but it's also fairy tale like.
Right.
That I can't remember who said. I think it might have been C.S. Lewis said that in fairy tales, characters wear their insides on their outsides.
Yes,
Right.
right.
So if you're ugly on the inside, you look ugly. Right.
Yeah.
There's a physiognomy idea in fairy tales, which is FF9 is kind of trying to resemble something of a fairy tale.
100%.
And so it's
Yeah.
like, hey, ugly people, like mean people, look ugly.
yeah.
So.
And
Unless-
if you wanted another confirmation that Alice in Wonderland inspired Final Fantasy IX, take a look at the design of Beatrix and her eye that's covered,
Yeah.
because the Queen of Hearts also has the general with the eye patch.
Oh,
really?
I didn't remember
Nice.
that.
Well, that's and remember
That's a
that
good catch.
Beatrix and Steiner were early in development, kind of the same character,
Right.
And so it could have been a male eye patched person that when they split him up, they were like, "Well, let's have the female have the eye patch." That's
Good
very
catch.
interesting.
Very good catch. I
interesting.
like that. But yeah, Queen Brahne is a human. Okay, this one comes from Kane Holder. Who would win in a fight to the death between Zidane, Cloud, and Squall? I'm going to be very quick on this
Is
one.
that even a question?
I'm going to be very quick on this one. As far as I'm aware, in terms of my knowledge of battle mechanics and how they work in the Final Fantasy series, and I may be wrong on this because this is not necessarily my forte, but I'm pretty sure one character, as in like, you're not talking about the party, you're talking about just one character and their ability, like how much damage can they do in a turn. Final Fantasy VII characters take the cake here. Like, they just are able to, when you make the materia setups the right way, attack multiple times for max damage over and over and over and over again, and then mime that, and I think that's kind of party. So we're getting rid of party. But as far as I understand it, I would say any Final Fantasy VII character would win against any Final Fantasy VIII character at max level and at max power, if we're just basing it on how the battle mechanics of each game work. This game in particular, I feel like they're much weaker at max level than other Final Fantasy games.
I think a possible explainer for that is the fact that you have a party of 4. So
Yeah.
if you have 4 people, you kind of need to take everyone down a little bit because you're going to get 4 attacks
That's
on an enemy,
probably true.
instead of 3 for the other games.
Yeah.
Also, in FF8, there's a deep incentive to not level up. So Squall, my FF8 Squall was like level 4 by the end of the game. So that's out. And then Cloud. Now, okay, I haven't played FF7 in a while. Cloud can summon, right?
Oh yeah, everybody can summon in that game.
So just FF9 kind of threw me off. Cloud can do Knights of the Round, and Zidane can't. Cloud can destroy the moon and the entire solar system with a summon, and Zidane can't. So yes, I got to side with you on that one.
Well, there's
It's
also
Cloud.
just like 4 cut, for instance, where 4 physical attacks in one turn, each 9,999 damage. I mean, that's like you're getting up to 40,000 just with a regular attack,
Yeah, that's a good point.
And Zidane can cast Thievery for one.
Well, thieves
know.
aren't known for their attacking.
Well, I just mean like
prowess.
for one round, he's kind of maxed out at that 10,000 damage, right?
Yeah.
And you can go so far beyond that.
And here's
in
the
other
thing:
games.
Cloud is only using 1/2 of what otherwise could be a dual. Can you imagine
What
the
a
Buster
dual
Sword,
Buster Sword?
with freaking 2 like 6 foot long blades? Ooh, see, Cloud is holding himself back a little, and he would still beat Zidane.
All right, what
So
would you guys
here's how
answer
this goes down.
Okay.
Zidane pulls a Yuffie, steals all of Cloud's materia, then the
I'll do it naked. It's Cloud.
Oh, jeez.
Good answer. I like that.
That's funny.
Yeah, what about Dan? Dan, do you have an answer to that?
It's Cloud. It's
Yeah.
Cloud.
Yeah,
Yeah.
straight up, it's
made,
Cloud.
made a pretty good case.
I'm pretty sure Cloud just is.
I mean,
they made
Squall
him
would beat
really
Zidane.
strong.
He squared off against Sephiroth and Dissidia, so
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
Okay, moving up to Zydart. Go through some of the revelations. We did this. Okay, we did this in the last episode.
Indeed we did.
So we can move on to another one. Stephen Wassling, not sure how to pronounce that. I don't have any. Oh, no, see, he doesn't have a question. He's just expressing gratitude for us doing the show. Thank
Thumbs
you.
up.
Ricky, during your playthrough, were there any characters you disliked because of their actions, but still appreciate how well they were written?
Beatrix, probably. Beatrix would be one.
Yeah.
She should have before things went down. She should have known.
She should have figured it out
Yeah,
quicker.
she should have
is
figured
what you're
that
saying.
out. I mean, Garnet had certainly figured it out and had volunteered people to kidnap her to save her mother. And yet Beatrix is like, I don't know what's going on until one thing happens. And now she's like, oh, I guess are we the baddies? Are we the baddies? It's that meme. Yeah, Beatrix probably, but she's a good character. She just kind of, it's like you screwed up a little too long. For my taste, but she's paying for it in the end. She's very lonely and she's very remorseful and she's, repentive. She's got something going for her. But that's one thing. Beatrix will never make the top 3. She'll never top Garland.
How about you guys? What do you guys think?
I mean, I've already kind of said Quinn, Steiner. You guys made me appreciate them a whole lot more. Quinn would probably be my answer for that question.
Okay.
Oh, that you disliked previously or something like
that? Yeah. And now I actually I'm like, oh.
Cool.
How about you,
I mean, I'd say Amaranth as a whole, just because his motivation is just he's a jerk.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have enough time to really overcome that.
Yeah.
There's that scene in
Ibsen's Castle.
Oh gosh. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Ibsen's Castle. And then there's, there's a little scene with him and Zidane on the ship. And that's it. It didn't have much to flesh it out.
Yeah.
So it's not like even I hate his motives. It's just he needed more screen time.
Yeah. It's like he starts getting it, but he came into the party so late in the game that there's just not enough game left to give him enough scenes to where he starts really changing. It's just kind of like you see that it clicks in his brain, but he doesn't have time to really embody that, show it. Though, anyway, I think you're right on with that. I never liked Steiner in the early game. I like Steiner at the end of the game. But Steiner always annoyed me at the beginning of the game. He's supposed to. He's supposed to. I mean,
Right.
that's the character is supposed to be annoying and irritating every time he talks. Like, dude, just shut up, stop. You don't get it. You're dumb. But that's a well-written character. You're supposed to feel that way about him, and he has a really great sort of turn. I love the moment where he and Zidane sort of finally, show some respect to each other. When they're back in, I think it's Alexandria, they rescue Garnet and she's unconscious, and they both realize they kind of failed to protect her, and then he turns around and says, "I have to go back and help Beatrix or whatever."
Oh, right, that's right.
That
was a
sort
good
of
moment.
turn for the character, I think, is really great. And so Steiner's a character that, from the beginning, in terms of my first playthrough, is I do not like this character. The character's really annoying, but I liked him in terms of his dynamic in the party and the foil that he plays to Zidane and how he played off Vivi and that sort of thing.
Yeah, me too.
That payoff is so good. And with Steiner's last thing we see of him, where Garnet's ready to run out the door, and how he's got to do his nightly duty, or
that's
duties.
right.
He pauses and then he smiles and he's like, go ahead.
Yeah, that was great.
So
That was great at the ending. I agree. I thought that was awesome.
I agree with you on Steiner. During your talk, that's one thing that stood out to me, how articulate he was.
Yeah.
And just at his job, that whole scene at the South Gate.
Yeah.
And how he played that off with
The pickles?
with the couple and the pickles.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's
By the way,
Steiner,
nice
awesome
gag
scene.
with the Gasol pickles. I was
That was
laughing
the best.
I was laughing my butt off, and
So good.
So funny. So funny. So this
stuff.
isn't a question, but I just wanted to read this for Kaysen's sake. I just wanted to say I never liked Steiner until hearing Kaysen do his voice for him. That made the tone of the character click for me. Before that, I think I was taking him and maybe a lot of the game more seriously than intended. So thank you. That's from Suoli. So just wanted to let you know you made it click for
Very nice.
Okay. All right. So this is MJ
You're
Gallagher. MJ Gallagher
Hey!
is another Final Fantasy content creator. He's written a lot of books that are focused on the mythological references that Final Fantasy makes to Greek mythology and others. And so this isn't so much a question as much as it is, I think, a really interesting addition to some of the things that he picked up. So I'm just going to read through this. So he says, you know me, I like to look at things from a mythology or history perspective. So I thought I'd share a few things that jumped out at me while I was listening. So Knights of Pluto, as Kaysen highlighted, Pluto is a Latin name for Hades, the ancient Greek ruler of the underworld. More specifically, it's the Latinization of Greek Pluton, meaning the wealthy one.
Which is where plutocracy comes from,
right.
The aristocrats.
The Greeks adopted euphemisms for Hades because they were afraid to speak his name aloud, with Pluton being the most commonly used by the classical period.
And the reason why Hades was wealthy is because the ground is where the jewels and gold are. And when people die, everything goes into the ground, and Hades owns it all. So he takes all of the gold. When you die, he takes all of your wealth.
Yeah. Let's see. According to Plato, in the dialogue, Cratylus?
The Credo?
I'm not exactly
the way this would be pronounced
Greek.
in Greek, it's Cratylus.
Cratylus, okay.
The Y. So you say the E sound, but with an U shape in your lips. So Cratylus.
Cratylus. Okay, got it. The wealth in question was the precious minerals and gemstones that could be mined within the earth. The Knights of Pluto are therefore a likely nod to Alexandria's jewels or Garnet's name. And there is a little bit of a side quest that I missed on this playthrough, where when Steiner is like trying to chase after Garnet, find out where she went because she had disappeared from the play at the beginning. You can go to talk to all the Knights of Pluto and learn their names. And those names, I think, are all references to this sort of thing, too.
That's right.
And there's the knight who's on the stairs, and he's like, oh, gosh, like running up the stairs, so much exercise.
They're such wusses.
Right. You talk to him, and he'll say, oh, who have you found? And then he'll list the names if you found all of them. And so that's one thing I kind of missed on this playthrough. But okay, so next part of this. Freya and Sir Fratley. The Vikings believed that half of all those slain in glorious battle would join Odin at Valhalla, while the other half would be taken to Freya.
Freya was the wife. Yeah, but it says it's still the Y sound.
She appears
That's Friday.
in...
Friday is Freya. Freya Day is what Friday is named after. And then Odin's Day is Wednesday. Because in the English pronounced it Wotan. So Woden's Day is Wednesday. That's why there's the D in Wednesday, which we don't pronounce. And then Friday is Freya Day. Anyways, Thursday, Thor's Day.
That character appears in the new God of War games, God of War 2016 and Ragnarok. Yeah. She's a pretty prominent character in those games.
As Freya should be.
Often anglicized as Freya with a Y rather than with a J. At her afterlife meadow of Folkvangner, the warriors would be selected and escorted to heaven by the Valkyries. Both Valhalla and Folkvangner were in Asgard, the celestial realm of the top of the world tree Yggdrasil, similar to Clara.
Oh, that's right. I didn't make that connection.
Yeah.
The tree. Very nice.
Right. According to the Norse myths, Freya, a goddess of battle and sorcery, married a god called Od, who often went traveling for extended periods. She would weep for her absent consort, visiting many places in search of him. In Final Fantasy IX, Freya has been wandering the continent looking for her beloved Sir Fratley. He appears during the destruction of Clara by the Eidolon Odin.
Oh, and Odin is the one who destroys
and
Clara.
And is shown to be wearing a wide-brimmed hat and wielding a lance. Two things generally associated with Odin. The former is part of his traveling guise, while the latter is his spear.
He pinned himself to the tree.
Yeah, so Odin had a lot of different aliases or disguises he would use as he wandered the world. One of them was Harbored, which was featured a lot in the show Vikings.
Oh yeah.
Harbord was a character that would come when the Vikings would leave, and they
we
would
talked
go out.
about Harbord recently, and it might have been FF16.
Yes. Harbord was a
it.
character or a name that was used in Final Fantasy 16. Yeah. So that was one of Odin's like disguises or aliases. Freya herself has wings on her helmet, reminiscent of the Valkyries as portrayed in modern culture.
Cool.
Last one here, Egyptian influences. The city of Alexandria in FF9 seems to derive its name in-game from the Eidolon Alexander.
Alexandria, yeah.
Throughout the FF series, though, there are a number of connections between the summon Alexander and the historical legends of Alexander the Great. During the establishment of his empire, Alexander the Great founded many cities called Alexandria, but the most famous by far is the one in Egypt.
Right.
The city became a trade and academic hub for many cultures around the Mediterranean, including the Egyptians and Greeks. Although separate to Alexandrian society, the cult of Ra remained prominent in Egypt for more than 500 years after the city was built. Ra's worshippers believed that he created the known world and that he was the personified sun, sailing in the sky each day in his solar bark.
Boat.
But that's the word for boat in Portuguese.
Barque?
Yeah.
It's barco, I think, in Sweden or in Spanish.
His sole eye could represent the destructive aspect of the sun's power, often functioning as an independent goddess, but forever bound to Ra. Yeah. Each night as the sun sets, the bark stops at the entrance of the underworld to let the souls of the dead board the vessel, and it will then carry them into the halls of judgment, emerging from the underworld again at sunrise. Yeah. Given the sun and the eye symbolism in the game, it's possible the Invincible, with its fiery eye, is a reference to Ra
and
his
boat.
skyboat airship, especially because of the souls it has absorbed and trapped within. So
that is fascinating.
MJ Gallagher
I like how that all
is a beast.
Cool,
if you've
that's
not
dope.
heard of him, go look him up. He's written a lot of great books that you can go buy on the mythology of Final Fantasy, and we will have him on the show at some point in the future. So
Shout out to Mo.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I follow him on Twitter. He's awesome.
Yeah,
that's dope.
Just to add a couple things, what he was saying, I think what he was saying and connecting with Clara, I think can also be connected to the Ifa tree in Memoria.
Oh yeah.
And then on top of Alexander, or the city Alexandria in Egypt, they were also heavily involved with alchemy. So tying that kind of back into the creation of the mages, trying to create life.
Sure.
I wonder if that played some sort of connection to that as well.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
That's right.
Okay.
That's cool. I like
Next one here is from Frozen Flame, 45. Just finished up the game today. Thanks for replaying FF9. Inspiring me to pick it up again. It was the first FF I showed to my 2-year-old son. He learned how to use a controller by writing the chocobo on the world map and would say "que" after hearing it in the song. It was very cute. We both had a great time playing it. Anyway, I had a few lingering thoughts after the ending. What do you think of Zidane going alone to save Kuja? We talked about this in the last episode, so we'll leave that. Number 2, what is Terra's connection to the world of Final Fantasy I? Is it the same world? My answer to that is no, but do you guys have a different answer? Do you think that Terra is FF1's world?
Fun callbacks.
Yeah.
Fun callbacks.
Memoria.
I would like to hear more if you want to explain it in the comments or something, Frozen Flame. If you saw more connections there that maybe we didn't see to why you were theorizing that could be the case. Number 3, what was the significance of the 4 gemstones each country held, including Garnet's pendant? Were they supposed to be combined? Did they hold different summons? I'm going to turn this to Spoons, who said before we started he wanted to answer this question. So go ahead.
So the summoners originally were on the Mist Continent. And what specifically happened to drive them off of the Mist Continent to go to Maiden Sari is unknown. But there was a cataclysm that happened that caused them to have to go to Maiden Sari. And I think part of this is because they tried to summon Alexander, which is what the connection of these 4 pendants from all of these nations in the Mist Continent and Maiden Sari did. That's why when those pendants came together, Garnet and Aiko were able to summon Alexander. It was the uniting of those gems. That was the gem to summon Alexander. Right. So when the summoners left, they left a piece of this with them. Now, they failed to summon Alexander in the past. And I think part of this is because part of it has to be the will of the Eidolon in order to actually want to be summoned.
Right.
And then like they also play on like this is explained in the Eidolon wall, how the summons take the image of the way the summoners are perceiving them, almost like playing into like, that collective myth, or like how people see and how, different gods evolve throughout different cultures. How like Ra and Odin, as mentioned before, kind of like the same god, but in different mythologies.
Yeah.
So
yeah, great answer.
But that's the story behind the gem, is it was the gems used to summon Alexander.
Yeah. So I think that is something that can be easy to miss. They probably could have put a little more emphasis on the gems. But yeah, in that scene where Bahamut's attacking Alexandria and Echo shows up, that's when her gem is connected with the gems that had been collected by Garnet. They come together and Alexander summons. So that's what those gems' purpose was. And then the last one here, is there any further explanation for why Vivi is different than the other black mages? So I believe they said outright that he was a prototype.
Yeah.
So he was created before the current model of like mass-produced black mages as a prototype, and is a little bit special because of that. So that would be the answer to that. Okay, thank you, Frozen Flame. I want to know if we've already kind of touched on this. This is from Meteor Tome. Every Sakaguchi-led Final Fantasy game, with the exception of 9... Oh, no, this is actually really good. I remember this one now. Features an ending screen with the perspective of flying through stars. To me, this gives the impression of traveling to the next world in the anthology series of Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy VIII, as the start of the major deviations from the classic FF formula, did not feature this end screen. Curiously, this did not return in 9, despite it being Sakaguchi's game and more similar to the first 7 titles. While I'm not certain it is intentional, I feel as if its absence adds to the sense of finality for Sakaguchi's era of the series, and is present. That is present in Final Fantasy IX. Do you believe there is any intent behind that Starry ending screen, or is it just stylistic choice? I will say this. I don't think it can be said, looking at the series history, that Sakaguchi expected this to be the last Final Fantasy that he would work on. He was executive producer and involved somewhat in 10. And of course even when he was demoted from being the executive vice president after the movie bombed and stuff, and Yuichi Wada became president, he was still basically the head of the Final Fantasy, like the creative director of Final Fantasy, essentially, was his position. Now, when that happened, he was like already looking for a way out. He was like already copywriting or trademarking Mistwalker, and like, making sure the domain was saved for that. And he was like, but he was preparing to leave, but he was still working at Square for quite a while after this. Okay. And obviously brought Matsuno on to direct Final Fantasy XII. And so he was still involved in the series post FF9. So I don't think that he made Final Fantasy IX with the intention, this is it, my final Final Fantasy. And so I don't know if a choice like that would have had the intent that maybe is being prescribed here, but I do think it's really interesting as a coincidence that it ended up being that way. And I love your reading of, that those stars at the end of each game being sort of like, okay, now we're journeying to another world.
Yeah, we're crossing the galaxy.
The next Final Fantasy world or game where it will take place.
Yeah.
Have no idea if that's the intent, but I like that reading. I think it's pretty cool. So
I'll give a different reading here.
Okay.
Imagine you're Hironobu Sakaguchi. You started out in 1986, 7, making a game that beat Dragon Quest. It was your dream. And now you have been involved in the process of the creation of 9 more such games over the last 10 years, right? 13 years. Boom. Like, this is your job. Yet, you've grown as an executive within this company, which itself has grown 100 times larger than it was when it initially started since you first joined it, right? Boom. So now it's a company with many hundreds of employees, and you're like a senior vice president at the company. And already you've noticed that your hands-on ability to shape the series has diminished somewhat.
Started slipping a
and
bit.
that the artists underneath you, people like Nomura, Tetsuya Takahashi, the other game directors beneath him are wanting to move up and become directors themselves and become producers themselves. And that as everything levels up, you get further and further away as the executive producer. And now imagine that you got the rights to make a movie that you think is going to make $1 billion because it's so dope. And the possibility that if things go well, and why wouldn't they, that you may not actually get the chance to direct another Final Fantasy game ever.
Oh, okay.
Now, here's the thing.
Okay.
I mentioned in the last episode, Sakaguchi was going to make FF13. I meant just 1 week ago from whoever is listening to this. That's what I said. Since reading this comment, and even after hearing what you've said, was he really going to direct Final Fantasy 13? Was he going to become the CEO of Square Enix?
Director at that point. Yeah.
I wonder about this. Tetsuya Takahashi considered him the final boss that he had to defeat in order to be able to make his own game, right? Right? I mean, maybe not him, but he characterized the game making industry in that manner, right? And you think Sakaguchi was not aware of this? Like he knows these kids who started out in their 20s are like growing up, right? Yeah. And that he may have started FF, but he by no means can always be directing the game so directly, right? Yeah. I wonder if something in him knew that the FF9 was actually the last one he was going to make, not because he was going to get fired and his movie was going to bomb and all that stuff.
But just because the nature of his job would change.
Exactly. Yeah. He was the senior vice president of a huge company. You're not just like directing games at that point, especially if the movie thing succeeded, and he had no reason to assume that it wouldn't, right?
Yeah.
And once you are the director of a massive movie, you're probably going to make another movie, right? You're probably done making games. Anyways, I'm just going to throw that reading out there.
An interesting theory. I could see that. I could see some truth in that. That could lend credence to this idea that maybe it was the last one he was going to like conceive, write, direct himself.
I mean, he already like FF9 was done in Hawaii. It's like he kind of wanted to be in Hawaii. He was still young, but he was kind of starting to like shore up his life and get everything ready for retirement, basically.
Sure.
Which is I don't know.
Okay. Okay. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
I think part of it too, just like Final Fantasy IX being like the last of the classic Final Fantasies, quote unquote, because he talked a lot about that, like wanting this to be the representation of everything Final Fantasy was culminating
like his
to be
life's
at that point.
Work.
Yeah. So I kind of wonder if that played into some inspiration, give it that, iconic riding out on the sunset kind of.
Yeah,
it's like he wanted to make one last hurrah for that because he could see that Final Fantasy 7 and 8 were so massively popular. I don't know like the behind the scenes of all that and everything. Obviously, nobody does, but it's just kind of like, man, when you realize that you've built this thing to become what it is, and then all of a sudden this new game, this new hotness comes in, and it's just like, oh, whoa. And then the 8 is super popular, and you're just like, well, I'm no cloud, no squall is going to hinder. I'm going to make this game.
Nice.
Very nice.
I also spoke, and this is off topic, so we don't have to dive into it, but like I spoke with Sakaguchi, and I know you did too.
Yes.
And like, I didn't want to ask him, but it's a question that's always been on my mind. And I was like, I'm not going to ask him that question because it would be like in bad taste. But I wonder, like, did Hollywood have anything to say with Spirits Within? Like, I always felt like that world wasn't supposed to be our world. It wasn't supposed to be New York and all that other, like, I was always like they changed it.
This is really interesting. This is really interesting. Go ahead.
We've spoken with in fact, the writer for Spirits Within left a very lengthy comment. Go check out
Spirits Within, like podcast episode.
We did a podcast on Spirits Within, and he said, I
haven't watched that one.
He gave some very interesting insight, and believe me, I have been trying to get a hold of him to bring him on to the show. But it's been difficult. I think it's Jeff Vintar.
Yeah.
And he gave us some insight that the Hollywood producers were not thrilled to be producing Spirits Within. They were not happy with it at all. They knew it was going to bomb. They knew it. but they had an agreement with Sony, and part of the agreement was Sakaguchi gets to make his own movie. So they were like, fine, just do it. Let him do it. It's going to bomb. We're going to write it off, and like it's fine. But they were not excited about this movie.
They didn't really believe in it, especially like the concept that Sakaguchi originally drafted, which was different. Which was
lots
different.
Of revisions.
I have read parts of sort of like the original concept for
me too.
The Spirits Within, and it's very cool. And maybe if we revisit that and we get the writer, so when we say the writer, we mean the writer of like
screenplay,
the screenplay that was the finished version that became the movie we saw.
Yeah.
If we get him on, it'd be kind of fun to revisit some of that. But he was very candid in his comment about how meddlesome the studio was, and how he was not happy about that either.
They changed a lot of his work.
Yeah,
and it's like, all right,
and so
it makes so much sense.
So it was a mess, and it was a mess because there wasn't sort of a unified vision behind what would succeed or not, or and so whatever Sakaguchi came up with that story is, I don't want to say completely removed from the final project, but or the final product, but it's certainly not reflective of his storytelling style. A lot of his ideas are there. The Gaia hypothesis being like the major sort of like, tied a stake in his touch on like that story, but certainly not his storytelling. Like his style, his touch is not really there in how it's written or structured in the final product.
Man.
So
unfortunate.
Exactly.
That's also, I do want to go back and watch your episode. I actually have not seen that one, so I'm really excited.
It was actually really fun. It's a really fun one to make. I actually like that movie.
I kind of do too.
Me too.
I mean, it's obvious that it has problems, but it's obvious also to me that those problems are studio mismanagement,
like too many cooks in the kitchen
problems, not so much like the concept of it, which I think is the strongest part. Is its theme is good, but
self-destruct. I know, but it must be done. That was a good movie.
Okay, this one comes from Ryan Gardner Cook. As a teen who loved Final Fantasy 7 and 8 but found 9 too goofy at release, I'm now replaying it and appreciating its craft as an adult. Do you think 9's reception was shaped more by player maturity, needing to be more mature to appreciate it, or by its placement after 7 and 8's darker cinematic tone? I think it's the latter. I think it's the fact that it followed those, and those in particular were the ones that made Final Fantasy explode as a global franchise. And so people were kind of expecting that, even though those games might not have represented completely like what the origins of this series were all about perfectly. And this, I think, got to Sakaguchi a little bit, and that's why he wanted to like steer the ship all the way back the other way.
Me. I'm sorry. Well, that was my fault.
Me too, right? Like I remember seeing Final Fantasy 9 characters for the first time and feeling they looked really goofy and weird. Yeah. And they didn't look badass.
Exactly.
Like Cloud with the sword.
And Sephiroth.
And when you're 12 years old, that's just how you think. And a lot of these games were mostly marketed to 12-year-olds. Yeah. And so there is an element of, getting older, becoming more mature, and becoming more curious as to the creative process, much less so than does this just jump off the page as being appealing to me in my emotions and just reactionary, like why did they make that choice? And then I got the link to one of my favorite childhood films, which is The Dark Crystal. I was like, they're trying to, they were inspired by that movie. That's why their faces look like that. They look a little bit like Gelflings. I'm cool with this now. Right? Yeah. But I wouldn't have been able to make that connection as a young kid. And I think that was, at least in part, explain some of this. But
yeah, I agree with that. The darker cinematic tone, I feel like FF13 and 15 and 16 have been trying to go for that. And the only Final Fantasy, aside from the online ones, which are a mixture of all kinds of things, The only other Final Fantasy that doesn't go for quite as completely super dark of a tone is Final Fantasy 12, which also came out at the end of the console's lifetime, right around the time the PS3 came out, and maybe had reduced sales. And for all sorts of reasons, it's possible that they just decided, the kids like the dark and gritty. I don't know. Like, maybe they're right about that. I'd like to think that they're not. I'd like to think that they were still going to plan for some more levity, and they're not all going to be bogged down in this super heavy tone.
Yeah.
But that seems to be where they've landed at, which is, if they look at 7 and 8 and why those were successful, then they look at 9 and 12 and versus, 10 in the middle, what they would conclude is kids like more dark and gritty.
You know what's funny about that is, well, first
Although
of all,
10 is a great mix also.
Yeah.
I think 10's a good mix of both.
Final Fantasy X is perfectly balanced
very well
in terms of
balanced.
those two things. But Final Fantasy 12 is still, I would say, a much darker game than like 9 is.
You definitely.
And it's certainly.
But when
the
I
way
look
the
at it with
characters
13 and
But what was I going to say?
you're right though. It is darker.
I was going to say that people remember, I think, Final Fantasy 7 or 8 being these kind of darker, more gritty, cinematic, realistic. But Final Fantasy 7
They're
is
pretty silly.
Really silly.
7's silly.
It's true.
It's
true.
unbelievably silly. And 8, I think, was designed, we talked about this in our podcast on that, specifically, like abjectly with the purpose of being lighter than 7 was. They were like, we want to go back to school days when the nostalgia tie, like
that's true.
going back to a time
That's
when we were
actually
younger.
a good point. That's a good point.
And so it's very funny too. I mean,
it
it's
is actually really
constantly very, very funny.
Yeah.
And so I feel like FF has always been that way. And it's not until like really recently where you've started to see that shift towards, I would say in Final Fantasy 15 and 16 in particular, where they're going a lot darker. But Final Fantasy 15 started off as a spin-off title, so it wasn't going to be a main series thing. And there was a whole... Anyway, we'll get into that some other day. But do you guys have answers to this you wanted to bring up?
I mean, you nailed what I was going to say pretty much. So
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm on a different end of it. I know that you guys have your issues with the later ones. I actually really, really enjoyed 16 and 15. I enjoy that really dark, mature tone of especially 16. I think absolutely. Just the storytelling is amazing. The gameplay is where it lacks a little bit, but
I see.
Yeah. But as far as like being silly and having that balance and everything, I think we look to Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth. Like I think Rebirth is kind of like it's super goofy. Sometimes it goes a little too far because, and this is something we can talk about when we get to a possible remake of 9.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like once you bring in these voice actors, you bring in mocap, you're bringing in like these realistic graphics and stuff, which I don't think they'd go for with 9, but still like with 7 Rebirth, when these comedic elements come on, I actually go on the other side of this. I'm like, yo, give these moments time to breathe. Like these moments need time to breathe, especially when you're consuming the story this way, like through this remade. That's why I'm like, oh man, when Final Fantasy 9 gets remade, is it going to be too goofy at times to where it's like, whoa, like I'm
like
not
it comes
taking
across different when it looks real versus when it's a little cartoon
100%.
on a
Yes.
PS1. It would totally come across different. Yeah.
So Rebirth just threw all of it out the window and just said, we're going to be goofy. We're doing Final Fantasy, like old school goofy with heavy. And I think they did a fantastic job, just certain elements there, here and there. But I think they will look at Rebirth and FF7R as kind of the template moving forward, as seeing like, yo, this is actually really, really almost universally praised, whereas 16 had a lot of divisive thoughts, where I would say maybe 17 might adapt some of that.
Yeah. It's really hard because these games are all in development at the same time. And so it takes years to like
so long to
decide on should we go this way or that way, and they keep going back and forth. And it's, we've talked all about this before, so I don't get bogged down in this. But I want to clarify for anybody, I have tried to voice this many times. I do not hate Final Fantasy 15 or 16.
I actually don't either. Yeah,
I
think they're good
actually
games.
kind of like 15, even though like
I like
it
15.
certainly wasn't like what because it was
What it
such
could
a
have been.
long
Yeah.
development cycle, and
Versus 13.
what Versus 13 was promised or sort of shown to be is not what 15 ended up becoming. I get that, but like, I certainly
Yeah.
don't hate the game. It's
I
yeah.
apologize. I didn't mean to.
No,
Like,
no, I'm not
make
saying that. I'm
seem
not
like
saying that you are
hated
saying
it.
this either. I'm not
'Cause
saying
I
that
know
you're accusing me. I just want people to understand. Like, I do not hate Final Fantasy 15 or 16, and people seem to have gotten the idea that I really didn't like 16 when we did our podcast. Maybe that's my fault for how I voice my criticisms. It's certainly not like a bad game at all. I don't think any mainline Final Fantasy is a bad game. I think it was insane to say something like that.
Right. The first half of 16 is actually quite good.
I think there's a lot of promise there, and there were a lot of good ideas. It's just my only thing that maybe makes it seem like I'm Mr. like negative on Final Fantasy these days is just that I really appreciated the design structure behind the older versions. I'm talking about random encounters and pre-rendered backgrounds and things like this that were like a part of its design philosophy that have been lost, and now we're doing basically almost straight up character action games and things like that.
Devil May Cry.
But that doesn't mean it's a bad game. It's just, I kind of miss this. And so when we get a game like Expedition 33 comes out, and I go like, see, it can still be really good.
I
and
was
it can still
I was
succeed.
about to name drop Expedition 33.
Yeah.
I was about to name drop.
Great game, man.
to a
Talk
huge
about a game that was very, very like mature and dark and like had those themes, but
Yeah.
also had Wii and Woo. You know what I mean? We
Yeah,
had
yeah.
on the
And
festival.
Eskia.
So that's a great example. I think it balanced those two things really well.
Yeah,
Oh,
me
yeah,
too.
absolutely.
Okay, next one here. We're going to get into a remake here. So there was a lot of people who asked us if we could talk specifically about a remake and speculate
Like
on that.
what should it be and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
what do you think about
we could do
that?
we could do a whole video on just that.
We
Come
could.
on, man. Yeah, let's get hype. Let's get hype. Let's get hype, President.
So let's
spoons.
why don't we start off by just saying who believes that this is real or not? Like that there actually is a Final Fantasy 9 in development.
I've been hearing this for years.
Yeah.
And I mean years.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like we'd have
I'm
seen something
teetering
by
on the
now,
idea.
right?
Was it real or has it been canceled?
Oh, so
Because
if
there were reports coming out that it had been canceled, but like nothing's been officially stated. Because it was that NVIDIA link that initially popped up with everything, and everything in that NVIDIA link has now been released except the Final Fantasy 9 remake.
if it got canceled, just go play the original. It's still there. It's a good game. We just played it. It stands
It's
up,
a great
people.
game.
Stands up.
Yeah, well, like with the Moguri mods and stuff on Steam, you can get it running at a higher frame rate. You can, get the backgrounds to be scaled with AI to look really beautiful in HD, and so it's a good way to play it for sure. What about you, Dan? Do you think FF9
Mr. Hype.
is real?
What
Come
you got?
on, baby. The warrior of hype is here on Resonant Arc. Let me tell you. Okay, I am of the mind that this was real. I think it is in development, or it's going through development hell, and there's some sort of there's problems going on. I believe that the reveal was supposed to be this summer. Like I really, really think it was supposed to be in the summer. I mean, we had marketing deals that were in place. I mean, I'm sure you guys know this, where it's like that doesn't just happen like, oh, we're just going to make a figure, we're going to do this. Those are years. Oh, I wouldn't say years, but they're planned well in advance to where you want it to line up with something. So where I think it was meant to line up with an announcement. And then something happened where it wasn't able to get that announcement. That is what I truly believe. And then they just recently announced a 25th anniversary event in December. And I'm like, okay. Square Enix is not blind to, they're not like numb to it or deaf to it. They see it. They know that there's this buildup of anticipation, this buildup of people know that this rumor is going around. The Square Enix knows. So in order to do this 25th anniversary event in December, it kind of has me thinking it's almost in bad taste if you don't announce it now. What do we already had a 25th anniversary event. We don't need another one. So
that's what people were thinking about their 25th anniversary thing that took place just a month or two ago.
Yeah. What are we doing? doing?
And there wasn't anything really to say.
I'll say
or
this:
show.
I wouldn't be surprised at all if they had 2 anniversary events and at neither of them they announced Final Fantasy 9.
You know what? We've been through this game, this show so many times.
Square Enix, that would not surprise me at all as a thing that they are capable of doing. But go ahead.
Oh man, I know. Oh man, come on, bring it down the hype. You're bringing down the hype.
I don't mean to throw a wet blanket on it. Just saying.
I'm just kidding, man. No, but I mean, it does happen. It does end like only like what is it, 2 days before the Game Awards, and it's like okay. And then I would have to go back and I'll throw in like a quote from Jeff Grubb, who I think is a very like legitimate source in the gaming industry. He does Giant Bomb, and he had a podcast like 2 years ago, and that 2 years ago he was like, "Oh yeah, no, this is Final Fantasy 9 remake is real." Like he straight up said it's real, and then that was kind of it. And he does this a lot. He has a lot of inside information, and I really trust him as a source. And then you go on to just like this build up to it. But I mean, this is not really directly with the remake, but Yoshi P even said like in a quote where like Yoshi P was like, what did he say?
Is this the one where he's talking about the meaning of life? Or is that I'm thinking about something else? Okay, different one.
Yeah, I was thinking about the ATB, like where he was like, if I were doing it, it would be turn based. But then again, that was basically what he said. That's the quote. If I were doing it, it would be turn based. He said, I know a lot of people would think that since I did 16, we would do like this action thing, but if I were doing it, it would be turn based. So it was kind of like and then the 14 collaboration, that quote where he was like, as far as why there's a 9 collaboration, just wait and see.
Yeah, right.
Wait and see for what? 25th anniversary? What are we doing? So I just kind of I've been really steadfast. Well, this is real. Now, just because I think it is real and it has been in development, like Gaming with Spoon says. I mean, I think the latest rumor, which I don't know about the legitimacy of, I think it was Nate the Hate that did that one, that released that, like, it's could actually be canceled.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay. Well, that would actually also make sense too.
That would.
So whereas why it wasn't announced during the summer, why there was this big push. We had Famitsu doing like in like even the illustrator, I can't think of his name.
Amano?
For Final Fantasy 9 character illustrator.
Minaba?
Yeah,
I believe so. Yes, I believe so. Did new artwork for every character.
Yes, I saw that recently, which is very interesting as well. Yeah, so, it would make sense if the whole thing got canceled. What if? They usually get
real.
They usually get smaller studios to kind of do the remakes. At least for FF7 remake, they had like Avalanche and. I can't remember. Like Silent Hill 2 remake was done by I can't remember.
CyberConnect 2 was originally doing Final Fantasy 7 remake. Then it got taken away from them, brought back in house.
Yeah. But they were experimenting with that. Like, hey, let's let somebody else do this. What if they got somebody else to do an FF9 remake? What if that somebody else is Mistwalker? What if it's Mistwalker Studios?
Guess who's been buddy?
Well, you know what? Yeah, they've actually seemed to kind of patch things over. I mean, Sakaguchi has, once or twice shown up for a marketing event for. I'm sure they paid him a ton of money. It's like, hey, show up to the FF15 thing.
This is not happening,
guys. It's Mistwalker is making FF9 remake. So because I understand about a lot of the other ones, but if you remake FF9 and Sakaguchi's not involved and he's still alive, I don't know that I want to play it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just put it at that.
So, some people might say the same thing about like the recently released Metal Gear Delta, right? Which is like an almost shot for shot, complete faithful recreation of the original game.
If you're going to do it without the original creator, it better be a faithful recreation of the original.
And there are still people who think, they're not using the bloom effect here. It loses its tone or whatever.
Yeah, the PS5 version.
So, there's still people who will think that it's missing the mark. That's kind of unavoidable to some extent, but here's the only answer I can give to this at this time, and I can't say why. I believe it's real,
Okay.
and I believe it will be a faithful recreation or what they are aiming for, a faithful recreation of Final Fantasy IX, a game that is meant to, as close as possible, stay to the original story, not what like Final Fantasy VII Remake was, which was kind of an expansion of,
Right.
or maybe something like kind of sidequel or sequel to Final Fantasy VII. Not something like that. Something that's meant to be like what Metal Gear Solid Delta is to Metal Gear Solid 3.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's what I believe.
Interesting.
And we'll see if I'm right, I guess, at some later date.
I mean, it wouldn't really make much sense to be an action game anyway, because like that would be going against the DNA of what 9 is. Like
Yeah.
9 is supposed to be a throwback. It's supposed to be a
Right. Yeah.
Just kind of throw this in there, another little thing too. So if Sakaguchi came in, because Square Enix actually ended up publishing Fantasian onto like to be on console and everything like
That's
that.
right. Yeah.
It's like, well, if he came in, I feel like if they were working on 9,
Yeah.
and then Sakaguchi's in the office, I mean, he's gonna be like, let me take a look at what you got going on there.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why it got delayed.
Right. He wanted to
Maybe
change
he was
everything.
like, this ain't working.
I
We
could
gotta go back.
definitely see that, where like maybe they would give him a consulting credit or a special thanks.
They've
or
done
something
that
like
in the past. Yeah.
right? Where he came in and kind of gave a little look at it and was like, hey, maybe it'd be cool if you did this or that. And they listened to that or not or whatever.
It'd be crazy though. Is just like with what you mentioned with CyberConnect 2, right?
Mm.
What if it was Mistwalker making the game, and then Square Enix was like, "That sucks," and they canceled it, and then they took it in
and then make it in-house.
That would be the worst.
That would be the ultimate insult.
All right, we gotta stop.
That
We
would
gotta
be
stop
the
with
end.
that.
He's like, all right, I'm never coming back.
That would be hilarious.
All
in
right.
the worst way.
That's all the speculation that we can do on it. There are two last ones that I just want to look at really, really, really quick. These are the last two questions we have.
Okay.
This one's from Brian Gamino, and he was basically going over why he thinks the charm and sort of like the humor and those parts of FF9 are what he appreciated the most. He feels like some of that magic is lost in sort of the ending, towards the end of the game. And wanted to know what our thoughts on that were. Do you agree? Do you not?
Do you want me to elaborate just a little bit on that?
Why don't you go ahead, Spoons?
Go.
So
yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, I felt that way until this last playthrough, because Memoria has always kind of been that dungeon, final dungeon, go through and do it. But when you break Memoria down and what it's going for, there's actually a lot that's happening in that dungeon that reflects a lot into it. It's a reflection of what the world's going for, because at that point the world is dying. Memoria comes out. It's almost like the soul of the world has been lifted up and they're going into it, seeing the world throughout its life and what it's had to do. I've talked a little bit about in the past how there's almost like a Kabbalistic feel to the way of the Tree of Life set up in there, like how each area like kind of represents, like its ascension to Keter, to the crown, essentially going into that. And so it's tying in, it's going like this. It's showing the characters. We've experienced your life in the game now, what you've gone through, that charm. This is mine. This is what I see.
I like that. Yeah, I like that way of looking at it. And I agree. I think Memoria, in terms of magic, I mean, I know what
charm,
what Brian is talking about in terms of tone, like the magic of the tone. And so that it's not, I know I'm not directly addressing what he's saying, but I do think there's a lot of magic in that Memoria sequence in particular. It feels very mythical, fairy tale, fantasy. I feel the magic in that sense in a really strong way in the Memoria section. I know that there's a little more maybe sci-fi elements in the Brand Ball parts, but I really like the design of Brand Ball, the way that they worked like the mushroom, imagery into that. Again, I think we kind of talked about that in the last episode.
That was interesting.
I know where you're coming from. I didn't feel it maybe to the same extent you did, but I do like disc 3 and 4 of Final Fantasy IX a lot. And I felt like they were much more well set up in earlier parts than I had previously given it credit for. I just hadn't it's in more subtle ways rather than like overt exposition. And I actually think it's handled pretty well. So,
and I'll just add one note in closing on that. So like we've watched these characters develop, and then they bring back the genomes from Terra into the Black Mage Village. And there's a conversation between Amarant and Freya that takes place about them talking about the passage of time and how we effectively need to fight for what these kids are to make sure nobody steals time from them.
Right. I can't remember who
their
says
lives are
that.
up and coming.
Freya, did Freya say that?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I personally liked how it went from like that whimsy, then like it's more serious as it goes on. I think that's just life.
Yeah, that's a good
I'm
point.
sorry I have that outlook.
No, that's a good point too. I think, tones change as circumstances change. So I think it works. But you were going to say something.
Well, I agree with the comment that it does lose its charm there. That's not to say that it loses its thematic, goal.
Focus,
It's focus. That's a better word. It achieves that very well. What I was thrown off by is, well, it's Garland, but I, of course, have a different view on him now.
Garland's your
I
favorite
should
character.
probably play the game again now. I already am expecting to play it again now, and I'll have a different view on it. Whereas before, I'm like, weren't we just trying to kill you? And he's like telling us where to go, and I'm like, all right, I'll go there. And it did lose a lot of its charm in that sense. And it does become just a lot more serious, even though the events that are happening are very cool. But it does jump into the sci-fi. It does jump into the nihilism, at least in part. And it does become a lot less charming until that scene with Zidane and Garnet where they find each other again and get back together. And the fairy tale ending brings that charm right back. So
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yes.
All right. And this is the last question. This is going to be probably mostly a case-in question, unless you guys know more about this. This is a language question. Do you want to read it, or you want me to
from
read it?
Zeitwechter.
Yeah.
This is a language-specific one, so I'm not sure if you know much or can find any useful information. I have found some stuff in my research. Yes, truthfully, I've never searched for these answers myself, but do you know how the translation was done into other languages, meaning besides English? I have some input into this. Now, some people who are participants in the Discord and our Patreon have even more insight into how this was done.
Right.
For instance, into like the Spanish and whatnot. But all of my research showed that there is a huge gap, a huge difference between the English translation and all of the other translations that have been done for this game. And that gap is that the other languages seemed to have been done more faithfully. I don't love to use that word in terms of translation. I will just say that whenever I find out what the original Japanese said, and then I look it up online, usually I have to look it up online. I didn't play this game in Japanese. So I'm like, okay, what was the original Japanese? I will often find like Reddit threads or just, posts online of people saying, hey, my version says this. What did yours say? And people in the German giving me the German line. People in Spain giving me their line. People with the French. And usually when there is a question about the translation into English and I look at the translations in German and French and other languages like Spanish, that those translations tended to actually have been done more faithfully to the Japanese than the English one. So there may be other points where they screwed up and the English got it right and I didn't see those. That's possible. But there were multiple points where I was like, yeah, that didn't come across well in English. And then in the same thread, people say, that's weird because my German says that exact thing perfectly. And I'm thinking, dang. So it appears as though at least some of the European languages got a very different translation that seems to have been
Closer
more or less
to
more
the
accurate or
original
faithful.
intent.
Yeah.
I seem to remember the last time we had a lengthy discussion about localization and translation with David from
That's right.
our Patreon, who is someone who works in translation.
Yeah,
he lives in Japan.
He has met several times the guy who localized FF9 into Spanish in Spain. Yeah.
And I seem to remember him more or less making that point that a lot of the European translations tended to be a lot closer in intent than English in at least I don't know. I guess the English translations for Britain and the United States would be the same, in Canada, North America, whatever. They would only have one English version. But that the English versions tended to, for whatever reason, stray more
Yeah.
than other languages
Take
did.
a few more liberties. I wonder if, like, I can speculate to that, but I don't know exactly why. It's just the English market is such a big and important market. It's entirely possible that they said, hey, you have the freedom to change things because we want our game to sell in your countries. If there's something weird happening here that your cultures don't like, by all means, we need this game to sell there. You have more liberties. Whereas the German audience, other ones, they just don't make as much money there. The English one is more important. And maybe it's not even top down. It could even be the English translators see themselves as more important. It could be that too.
I think there might be,
and they aren't necessarily wrong.
And I wouldn't even begin to understand the reasons for this. And we've had people who've worked in translation on our show, and I understand.
I'd love to ask them about this.
100%, like how difficult it can be to like faithfully translate a Japanese concept into an English one. A lot of times there's just no equivalent. Doesn't make sense. You got to just find some other thing to hopefully kind of get the idea across. I get all the troubles that come with it, but I also feel like there is maybe a little bit of a cultural difference where, for whatever reason, English translators see or sort of understand, or it's sort of embedded in them that there's a need for change that maybe is not as strong in other cultures for translation. At least with video games. I'm not talking about like translating the classics or something like that. But in video games, and I don't know why that is.
Well, America censors more than Europe. That's part of it. And if we're just going to be blunt about it, of course, Japan censors more than America in some ways, but that's not in question here. In question is Japan stuff going elsewhere, and that could be part of it.
Yeah. So don't know if that's exactly the answer you're looking for, but that's as good as we can do. You guys have anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up here?
Is that what you said? Do you speak French? Do you speak French?
No, I'm just learning from you, man.
That sounds right. That's what I was saying. But
that sounded way better than any of the 5 ways I tried to say it. So
I played Expedition 33. I know.
Oh, there you go. You know like 5 French swear words now.
Tell you how to pronounce it.
Yeah. Just so that everybody knows, we will not be jumping into the next game we're covering like next week. There's going to be a little bit of a break. I don't know if that will be a 1-week break or a 2-week break. Kind of depends on my travel schedule here coming up. But we will be doing episodes still. There will still be episodes, but we have some, kind of just different topics we'll be doing in the meantime. But your last chance might have already passed, but maybe there's one more day left by the time this goes live to go vote on whether you want to see Expedition 33 or Xenoblade Chronicles. Those are the games that are looking the most likely to win that poll. So you still have a chance to vote. Go check it out on our Patreon. And go check out Gaming with Spoons and Final Fan TV on YouTube. Actually, where else can they listen to your podcast, Dan?
You can check his Final Fan TV on pretty much every major podcast platform. I know Spotify, Apple, Google. I think those are definitely. I upload it to Anchor and it distributes it
to everything. Yeah,
to everything. So it should be everywhere. Just Final Fan TV.
Nice. And Gaming with Spoons, is that just YouTube, or do you got other stuff you want people to check out?
Just YouTube mainly.
Okay. Gaming with Spoons on YouTube. Go check out his Final Fantasy IX content. Thanks, guys, for joining us. I really had a lot of fun. I thought this was great.
Thanks
for having me.
Good to meet the two of you. I've seen you online in various places. We've maybe even touched base a couple times in the past. So it was nice to finally sit down with two of you, and we'll do it again sometime. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
Man, thank you guys for having me on for real. Like second favorite podcast right now. I love Kind of Funny. Kind of Funny has been like my inspiration to start Final Fantasy.
Those are the original IGN dudes, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So like I've been like, that's the only podcast I would ever listen to, and then I've just been listening to you guys every day. So this has been awesome to be able to sit here and talk to you guys. So thank you so much for having me on the show.
Yeah, man, thanks for coming. Thank you for coming on, and thanks for listening and supporting. We appreciate you. And we'll talk to you guys again out there in the audience next week. See you then. Peace out.
Hey, Kaysen here, coming in just at the very end. I know that in the last episode, we told people to leave comments and let us know what to cover here in the next episode. But we actually ended up recording this episode that you just watched one day before the last one went live. And so we weren't able to actually incorporate any comments from that into the episode itself. But there were some really good ones, and so I'm going to bring them up right now. The first one I want to bring up is that there's somebody who commented whose child has been diagnosed with something very severe. And I just want to say that, I feel for you in that kind of a situation. But the commenter also goes on to say that he played this game with his son and found some deep meaning in it. And I think that that's one of the great things about a game like this, that it has the power to really, really help people, especially modern people in the struggles that we go through now and the difficulty we have in finding meaning. So I wanted to bring up that first. It's one of the top comments. That's rough, man, but, stay strong, and Vivi's letter at the end should really bring comfort. By the way, speaking of Vivi's letter, that was probably the most common thing that was commented here in the comments, which we did not cover here in the episode. So I'm just going to read it right now. It really is something else. It's a wonderful, beautiful letter. So this is Vivi talking. I always talked about you, Zidane, how you were a very special person to us because you taught us all how important life is. You taught me that life doesn't last forever. That's why we have to help each other and live life to the fullest. Even if you say goodbye, you'll always be in our hearts, so I know we're not alone anymore. Why I was born, how I wanted to live, thank you for giving me time to think. To keep doing what you set your heart on, it's a very hard thing to do. We were all so courageous. What to do when I felt lonely, that was the only thing you couldn't teach me. But we need to figure out the answer for ourselves. I'm so happy I met everyone. I wish we could have gone on more adventures. But I guess we all have to say goodbye someday. Everyone, thank you. Farewell. My memories will be part of the sky. Now that's a really good letter right there. And you know that he's talking to you as the player, not just to Zidane. You helped Vivi figure out who he is, It's really touching. It was a really touching moment, and I really appreciated the letter. And a lot of people really just wanted us to make sure that we read that letter to incorporate it as part of this episode. It's really good and touching, and of course, throughout the letter, we're seeing all of the scenes of the characters still struggling, but, having found a purpose and having found some goodness and beauty in the world that they can, keep fighting for, as Sam says. So a lot of comments about Ozma. Some people have made a connection between Ozma and Terranigma. I am very hesitant. It's well made. I mean, it seems like Ozma looks like a bubble, and there's the Ark character that you fight, and there's a connection with Terra and Terranigma, and all of the worlds and memories. It seems entirely possible. And I'm sure that the developers had played, or at least were very familiar with that game. But they're published by different studios, and it's not confirmed, and I just have to bring all of that up. But it would be kind of funny, because we just covered Terranigma earlier, and it would be interesting if there really was a connection there. But I don't think the studio could ever admit to that. It's just a cool thing that it may be true. It may be true. Another comment that we got was somebody commenting on my comment kind of at the end of last episode, saying that I didn't know what it meant when the red and blue worlds still collided at the end of the credits. And, what does that mean? I had a hard time interpreting it, because that was something that seemed to me to not be a possibility anymore, yet it still happens, right? And the comment, and actually, let me just bring this up. I want to say the name, because this was a really good one. Okay, this was from Sarita Zero Aine. Just dope name as far as that goes. He says, I think I have some insight into the two planets merging at the end of the credits. I believe it represents the successful merging of Terra and Gaia, to which I raised my eyebrow, of course. After all, the time spent trying to force it by Garland, it was Zidane's choice to bring the genomes to the Black Mages, and the world's ultimate acceptance of them that completes the synthesis. And it only comes about by the acceptance of the death of Terra and the acceptance of the new thing that came from it. It all fits very thematically and gives a resolution, a satisfying ending, and a much more satisfying resolution. That is really cool. That is really cool, and that's something that I hadn't really thought of. But this theme also is present with Zidane. Somebody else had mentioned the radical empathy of Zidane, and how he even tries to protect Kuja, even though Kuja never really showed any signs of having any good qualities, or of maybe that he would, reciprocate and do the same for Zidane if the tables were flipped. He wouldn't, and that's kind of the joke there at the end. But Zidane completely gives up his life for Kuja, even though, you could argue that he didn't need to or shouldn't have or something like that, right? But in sacrificing himself and in giving himself, I had mentioned this previously in the episode, I think, either last one or this one, but in giving yourself to something higher, to sacrifice yourself for a greater good, you do, in a sense, in a way, and at least within this movie or within this game, you get your life back, right? It comes back to you after you give it away for a higher good or for a higher purpose. And Zidane was acting out something that's difficult to necessarily grasp, but in his moment of self-sacrificing and even protecting Kuja from the oncoming vines that were going to destroy everything, Zidane finds that in giving away his life, he has found it again. And that is, I know what I mentioned that in the Matrix episode, which you can only see on Patreon at the moment. So yeah, be sure to check out our Patreon if you're not a subscriber. Thank you all for a wonderful series and for watching and commenting and giving us all your feedback. It was wonderful, and it really helped the show to be better and to be what it is. And this is one of my favorite analyses that we've ever done. I have a truly deeper appreciation for Final Fantasy IX than I did before, and I really liked the game before. So that really is saying something. Thank you, everyone.